Chapter 1581. Although I won't kill you guys, it doesn't mean that I'm willing to nurture a tiger. Yi Qin spoke again. Cultivators above nascent soul. Hand over your soul blood, and I'll spare your lives. The reason why he let the disciples of the Panwu immortal sect go was because he saw that they were unwilling to leave after the death of the sect master. They would rather die to protect the sect. It would be a lie to say that such a pure heart did not touch people's hearts. What? As soon as he finished speaking, many people's expressions changed. The reason being that once they handed over the mixed blood, it would mean that their lives were in Yi Chen's hands. If the latter wanted them to live, they would live. If he wanted them to die, they would definitely not live past tomorrow. Suddenly, a beginner stage, God transformation stage, old man laughed out of extreme anger. Kill me if you want. Why would I be your lackey? Bang! Before he could finish, he was killed by the Patriarch of Hell with a slap. The Patriarch of Hell sized up the crowd with a cold smile. Who else? Dead silence. The scene was dead silent. Even if there were people who were unwilling, after seeing the former's death, no one dared to stand up and object. Yi Qin looked at Old Man Black Ice calmly. Have you thought it through? Old Man Black Ice looked conflicted. Yi Qin said again, I only want you to be free for 10 years. I'll return your soul blood once the 10 years are up. All right. Old Man Black Ice chose to compromise in the end. Without hesitation, he handed over his soul blood respectfully. The others hesitated for a moment before handing over their soul blood one after another. To him, an existence like Yi Qin would definitely not lie to him. Moreover, he was only at perfected God transformation stage. He was nothing. From today onwards, I'll take over the position of the Panwu Immortal Sect's sect master. Yi Qin eased his expression and glanced at the faces. Perhaps your cultivation aptitude isn't good enough or your abilities aren't good enough, but that's not important. All you have to do is be loyal to me. After saying that, he looked at Old Man Black Ice. Bring me to the Panwu Immortal Sect's treasure vault. Yes, sect master. Old Man Black Ice's expression was extremely complicated. An hour later, a shocking news spread throughout the entire Yin ruins. It was that mad Southern Yi had single-handedly suppressed the Panwu Immortal Sect and became the sect master of the Panwu Immortal Sect. When news of this spread out, all the powers were shocked, and besides being shocked, they were extremely disappointed. Obviously, they couldn't target the Panwu Celestial Sect anymore. On the other hand, the remaining 4 sacred grounds remained silent. Clearly, they were afraid of Yi Chen's strength. At the same time, they were afraid of Qianqiu Wuhen, the Tao master of human desire and Ing. 2 days later, another piece of news came out. At the Yanhuang stronghold, the Xianyuan 8 tribes were in internal strife. The patriarchs of the Qin family and the Ji family perished in battle, and Lei Yunzi was the only one who managed to escape. The patriarch of the Gu family unified the Xianyuan 8 races, and at the same time he offered a handsome bounty on Lei Yunzi's head. As soon as this news spread out, it caused the entire Yin Su to be extremely shocked. The Xianyuan 8 races were the last forces of China. As the 8 races of the great Emperor Xuanyuan's direct bloodline, there were 8 void refinement stage powerhouses guarding them. This was also the reason why the great Jiang God dynasty and the other powers did not dare to push them too far. Now that the patriarchs of the Qin family and the Ji family had died in battle, it was equivalent to losing 2 void refinement stage powerhouses. In addition to Lei Yunzi, who had betrayed them, the Xianyuan 8 races only existed in name. There were only 5 void refinement stage powerhouses left. In the Panwu Immortal Sect, all the disciples of the Panwu Immortal Sect raised their heads at the same time. Their eyes were filled with fear. Thick layers of clouds rumbled in the sky above them. Those clouds seemed to be formed from endless lightning. Just a trace of pressure that was emitted from them was enough to cause quite a few people to be unable to bear the burden. Old Man Black Ice stood in the distance and looked at the phenomenon in the sky. Apart from being shocked, there was a hint of envy in his eyes. This is the heavenly tribulation phenomenon of stepping into heaven, rank 3. The phenomenon was sensed by all the major forces at the same time. In an instant, countless eyes were focused on the Panwu immortal sect. In the royal family of the great Jiang God dynasty, Jiang Duxing took a step forward with a solemn expression. This is the heavenly tribulation of heaven, rank 3. Someone is about to step into heaven, rank 3. In Tianyuan City, Fang Tianqian rode on a cloud and saw through everything. It's in the direction of the Panwu immortal sect. More and more forces were paying attention. In the path of cultivation, it was about refining essence into qi, refining qi into spirit, refining spirit to return to void, and refining void into Tao. The process from void to Tao was known as the 3 stages of heaven rank. The 3 stages of heaven rank were the void refinement stage, divine division stage, and unity stage. Above them were the tribulation stage, Mahayana stage, and immortal stage. In the sky above the Panwu immortal sect. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying thunderbolt fell from the sky in the thick clouds below the Panwu immortal sect. It then whizzed toward a palace on the ground with a terrifying aura. Under the nervous gazes of many disciples, a young man in black suddenly shot out of the palace and took the initiative to face the terrifying thunderbolt. Ha ha ha, how comfortable! After the young man in black was enveloped by the terrifying thunderbolt, not only did he not show any signs of injury, but he even laughed nonstop as if he had been nourished. This. Old Man Heibing's eyeballs almost popped out when he saw this. After an hour, the thunder cloud dissipated, and the young man in black in the sky was unharmed. Instead, his aura and physique had changed drastically. In Old Man Heibing's eyes, if the young man in black was like a young man before, then there was a dangerous aura now. It was as if he was not a human, but a god patrolling on behalf of the heavens. At that moment, a faint laugh exploded in the air. Congratulations to the patriarch for stepping into beginner stage, void, refinement stage, and successfully forging the lightning demon body. Subsequently, Yi Chen's figure appeared in the air. This lightning demon body is indeed domineering. The patriarch of hell retracted his aura and looked at Yi Chen gratefully. He can absorb the heavenly lightning to forge his body. In that case, I won't be afraid of the so-called 9-9 heavenly tribulation after cultivating it to mastery. Yi Chen smiled and landed on the ground. Old Man Heibing and the rest immediately came up to him. Greetings, Sect Master! Did anything major happen today? Yi Chen asked. Over the past 2 days, he had been in closed-door cultivation to help the patriarch break through, so he did not pay attention to the outside world. There's an internal strife in the 8 Xianyuan clans. Old Man Heibing hesitated for a moment, but he still told him everything that had happened. He said, now the patriarch of the Gu family is in charge of the 8 Xianyuan clans, and Lei Yunzi has defected with a portion of his people. Defected? Yi Chen chuckled and narrowed his eyes. Based on what I know about Lei Yunzi, it must be the patriarch of the Gu family who forced him into a dead end. What a Xianyuan clan! Lei Yunzi's whereabouts are unknown now. Old Man Heibing nodded. Then he seemed to have thought of something and said, by the way, Sect Master, someone from the Merfolk clan came to ask me to give you something yesterday. You were in closed-door cultivation at that time, so I didn't want to disturb you. With that, he took off a storage ring on his hand and handed it to Yi Chen. Yi Chen took it, after wiping away the divine consciousness imprint on it. What he saw made his expression turn completely cold. In an instant, the temperature between heaven and earth dropped to its lowest point. End of this chapter. Chapter 1582. The patriarch of hell's expression turned grim when he sensed the coldness coming from Yi Chen. Did something happen? Yi Chen took a deep breath in and handed him the storage ring in his hand. The patriarch of hell took it and took a look. The scene that entered his eyes made his gaze turn cold. A severed hand. It was a severed hand that was dripping with blood. It seemed to have been forcefully cut off by someone, and the blood on it had yet to dry. What caught the Patriarch of Hell's attention the most was the diamond ring on the severed hand. He looked at Yi Chen immediately. Something happened to Yang Tian. Yang Tian had always worn the ring on his hand because it was the only thing his wife had left him before she passed away. It had never left his hand. In that case, the owner of the severed hand was obvious. Thinking to this point, the Patriarch of Hell's gaze was extremely cold. Looks like someone is targeting me. He had lived for more than 10,000 years in his previous life, and his intelligence was almost demonic. He immediately figured out the ins and outs of the matter. Cut off Yang Tian's hand and get someone to send it here. Yi Chen smiled lightly. A cold gleam surged from the depths of his calm eyes. The goal is naturally to provoke me and lure me there. What? Hearing that, Old Man Heibing's expression changed slightly. Sect Master, you've shocked the world today. Who else dares to provoke you? Could it be the 4 great sacred grounds? Yi Chen said. Who's the person who gave this token? It's a woman. Old Man Heibing pondered and said, she claimed to be from the Merfolk clan. She left after giving me the token. The Merfolk clan? The Patriarch of Hell sneered. Yang Tian is the son-in-law of the Merfolk clan. Why would the Merfolk clan treat him like this? Looks like something must have happened to the Merfolk clan. It's still unknown if the woman who gave the token is from the Merfolk clan. Activate the formation. Yi Chen glanced at Old Man Heibing and said, I'd like to see what exactly happened to the Merfolk clan. Who dares to provoke me so openly? Just as he finished speaking, Elder Black Ice said hesitantly, Sect Master, you might not know this, but the teleportation array in the sect was destroyed by a disciple who betrayed the sect. It hasn't been repaired yet due to the lack of a material. After the news of Patriarch Panwu's death spread, the Panwu Celestial Sect was in chaos. Some of them escaped through the teleportation formation. Worried that they would be punished, they destroyed the other end of the teleportation formation. He seemed to be worried that Yi Chen would be enraged after saying that. So he said, however, there's no need to be angry, Sect Master. There's a city called Moly City, 3,000 kilometers away from the Panwu Immortal Sect in the northern part of the Yinshu Core. I believe they have a formation. An hour later, Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell arrived at Moly City. The city spanned hundreds of miles. There were pavilions of various sizes everywhere and countless cultivators. According to the information provided by the Patriarch of Panwu, Moly City was controlled by the 4 major sections. The 4 major sects were all foreign sections. Although there were no void refinement old monsters, the 4 major sects were united. They were also good at a joint attack that could fight void refinement cultivators. Therefore, even the 5 sacred grounds did not underestimate Moly City easily. Moly City had become a cultivation city that was comparable to Tianyuan City and Heavenly Evil City. In order not to alert the enemy, Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell did not enter the city in a high-profile manner. Instead, they hid their cultivation base and handed over a few spirit stones. They entered the city gate quietly. As soon as he entered the city, several divine consciousnesses enveloped him. They stayed for a few seconds before retracting quietly. Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell looked at each other. They pretended that nothing had happened and walked toward the teleportation formation in Moly City. Not long after they left, 2 old figures landed at the place where they were earlier. The eyes of the old man in black flickered as he said, I still haven't found the aura of that group of people. I'm starting to suspect that they're in Moly City. Let's search a few more times, the other old man said. After all, the bounty is extremely generous. The old man in black nodded slightly. With a flash of his body, he disappeared into the distance with the former. Many pedestrians on the street did not notice such a commotion. What they did not know was that Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell's divine consciousnesses were on them from the beginning until the two of them left their sight completely. The Patriarch of Hell said, "These two are both at stage God transformation. It seems like they're from the four great sects of Moly City. I wonder who they're looking for. As long as it's not us, that's enough." Yi-Chin said, "Otherwise, there's no need for the so-called four great sects to exist." With that, he immediately brought the Patriarch of Hell to the direction of the teleportation formation that he sensed. From afar, he saw 3 giant teleportation formations standing in a huge square. At that moment, the square was already filled with people. Whispers could be heard faintly. Yi-Chin and the Patriarch of Hell walked into the crowd and lifted their eyes to look at the 3 giant teleportation formations. However, they realized that there were people guarding the teleportation formations at that moment. The teleportation formations had long been shut down. Among the dozen or so figures guarding the teleportation formations, the leader was a gray-robed old man. The old man sat cross-legged and closed his eyes to rest. He ignored everyone's gazes. At the same time, a middle-aged man beside him said in dissatisfaction, "What's going on? Why did the teleportation formation suddenly shut down?" "Fellow Taoist," a young man shook his head and chuckled. "You might not know, but the 4 great sects ordered the teleportation formation to be shut down for 3 days. It's said that they're searching for someone." The 4 great sects shut down the teleportation formation just to search for someone? Hearing that, someone exclaimed, "Oh my God, who would be able to cause such a commotion? You have to know that millions of spirit stones will be lost every day the teleportation formation is shut down." The young man shook his head and smiled. "Who knows? Just wait obediently. Did you see that? This time, Elder Wu of the Great River Sect is personally guarding it. Anyone who barges in will definitely die." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone looked at the old man sitting cross-legged with fear. Yi-Chin could not help but secretly frown when he heard the discussion. On the other hand, the Patriarch of Hell rubbed his palms together and said, "Why don't we suppress these people by force?" Among the people guarding the teleportation formation, the most powerful one was only at stage soul formation. To the two of them, they were like ants. Just when Yi-Chin was about to speak, he saw the gray-robed old man who was sitting cross-legged and resting with his eyes closed suddenly open his eyes. He looked at the crowd. "Since you're here, do you still want to leave under my nose?" This sudden scene caused everyone to be shocked. Stubborn fool! Before everyone could react, the gray-robed old man's figure instantly disappeared. When he reappeared, there was a flustered woman in front of him. The woman was only at mid-nascent soul stage, and her clothes were tattered. Clearly, she wanted to escape, but the former blocked her way. Chapter 1583. Whoosh! Seeing this, the crowd that was squeezed together immediately dispersed in an uproar. Then they stood in the distance and watched the scene in fear. Only Yi-Chin and the Patriarch of Hell stood where they were and watched coldly. "Little girl, come with me." The gray-robed old man looked at the flustered woman with a cold smile and approached her step by step. "As long as you tell me the whereabouts of the others, I can spare your life." Tap, tap, tap. The woman took a few steps back abruptly until she was next to Yi-Chin and the Patriarch of Hell. She mustered her courage and looked at the former hatefully. "Don't even think about it. Ning, I won't tell me where Grandpa lay and the rest, or even if I die. You refuse a toast, only to drink a forfeit." The gray-robed old man's gaze turned cold as he snorted. "Since that's the case, don't blame me for being merciless. After I capture you, I'll naturally have a way to force you to tell me where that old thing, Lei Yunzi, is." Boom! In an instant, a green claw mark attacked a woman at lightning speed. At that moment, the woman felt an extremely powerful pressure coming at her, causing her to be unable to move. She could not even commit suicide. She could only remain motionless, her eyes filled with fear. However, in the next moment, The gray-robed old man's expression changed because he realized that his attack had instantly collapsed when it was about to land on the woman. At that moment, he noticed Yi Qin and the Patriarch of Hell next to the woman. "It's you. Were you the ones who attacked just now?" His gaze suddenly turned extremely cold. "Brat, you're simply courting death." Before he could finish his sentence, he felt a blur in front of him. Then a wide arm grabbed his neck and lifted him into the air. The Patriarch of Hell looked at him with a faint smile. "How dare a piece of trash like you yell in front of me? Who are you?" The gray-robed old man's face was filled with fear because the black-clothed young man before him had captured him easily. One had to know that he was a perfect stage god, transformation stage cultivator. Let go of Elder Wu. At the same time, the disciples who were in charge of guarding the teleportation formation surrounded them. They looked at Yi Qin and the Patriarch of Hell with killing intent. Yi Qin acted as if he did not see it. He looked at the lady who was petrified calmly and said while smiling, "Can you tell me Grandpa's name?" She looked at Yi Qin timidly and then at the gray-robed old man who was lifted into the air by the Patriarch of Hell. Eventually, she bit her lip and said, "My grandfather's name is Lei Yunzi." Although she did not know Yi Qin, she could tell from the situation that Yi Qin was not hostile towards her. "Lei Yunzi." Yi Qin's eyes lit up slightly as he said while smiling, "Good, very good." He had learned from Old Man Black Ice about the internal strife of the Xianyuan 8 families and Lei Yunzi's betrayal. If it wasn't for Yang Tian, he would have gone looking for Lei Yunzi. Who would have thought that he would hear about Lei Yunzi here? How could he not be pleasantly surprised? Yi Qin looked at the lady again as he thought to this point, "I'm Grandpa's friend. Can you bring me to him?" The woman looked at him suspiciously. Yi Qin frowned slightly and said, "Do you know Taoist priest Beiyan? Are you talking about Grandpa Beiyan?" The woman nodded immediately and said, "Grandpa Beiyan treats Ning very well. Fellow Beiyan is also my friend." Yi Qin could not help but say with a smile, "You should believe me now, right?" "What about them?" The woman looked at the gray-robed old man and the rest weakly. Yi Qin said without turning his head, "Kill them all." "All right." The Patriarch of Hell laughed sinisterly. Under the gray-robed old man's terrified gaze, he forcefully crushed his body and primordial spirit. Then he took a step forward, and the cultivators surrounding the two of them turned into bloody mist on the spot. Dead silence. The world was as silent as death. Many people standing in the distance saw this scene, and they seemed to have been petrified. Their faces were filled with shock and fear. Even the woman was stunned. Yi Qin looked at the woman as if he did not see anything. "Let's go. Bring me to Grandpa. Only I can protect Grandpa." It was unknown if she was frightened or if it was for some other reason, but the woman nodded subconsciously and walked in front in a daze. "Follow me." Yi Qin glanced at the Patriarch of Hell. Only after the three of them left did the crowd, who had sunk into a petrified state, react. Soon after, waves of gasping sounds erupted. "Elder Wu of the Great River Sect is dead. This matter has blown up in less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn at a mass grave in Moli City." The woman brought Yi Qin and Yi Qin all the way there. Then she pointed weakly at the mass grave. "My grandpa and the rest are inside." Yi Qin could not help but look around. All he saw were weeds and rotten corpses that were exposed outside. "Thank you, Ning." If he had not sensed Lei Yunzi's aura, how could he believe that one of the 8 giants of the Xianyuan 8 clans, avoid refinement old monster, Lei Yunzi would hide in this place? "Who is it?" At the same time, a cry of alarm came from the mass grave. Then, countless figures shot over. They attacked Yi Qin and the Patriarch of Hell without saying a word. They were filled with intense killing intent. A bunch of little bastards. The Patriarch of Hell's gaze turned cold. He was about to kill them with a slap when Yi Qin stopped him. Patriarch, don't hurt them! Plop! In an instant, the 4 figures that shot out fell to the ground, revealing the appearances of 4 young men and women. However, the 4 of them were looking at the Patriarch of Hell with fear in their eyes. Brother Xiao, it's a misunderstanding. Ning, who had reacted, immediately went up and helped a young man with thick eyebrows and big eyes up. He explained, they're here to save Grandpa. Ning, don't be fooled by them. They're definitely here to capture us. The young man wanted to say something, but hesitated. Apart from fear, there was more hatred in his eyes when he looked at Yi Chen again. Fellow Yi? At this moment, a trembling voice came from afar. Whoosh! Then an old figure shot out, revealing the face of an old man in a tattered Taoist robe with an extremely dispirited expression. It was Taoist Beiyan. The young man called Xiao and the others hurriedly said, Greetings, Senior Beiyan! A bunch of silly children. Taoist Beiyan sighed softly and looked at Yi Chen. This person is the genius that appears once in 10,000 years in China. Mad Southerny. He's also the idol of you brats. What? He's Mad Southerny. Everyone, including Ning, was shocked when they heard that. Their eyes were filled with shock when they looked at Yi Chen again. Chapter 1584. He's Mad Southerny. Apart from being shocked, Xiao and the rest felt a burning pain on their faces as they looked at Yi Chen's face. They actually attacked their idol. One had to know that the person before them was a malefic who had killed 5 void refinement old monsters in a row. If it were anyone else, they would have been beheaded long ago. Thinking to this point, the few of them lowered their heads in shame. The woman, called Ning, looked at Yi Chen in disbelief. Her beautiful eyes were filled with excitement. So why you're Mad Southerny? Now you finally believe that I have no enmity towards you guys, right? Yi Chen glanced at her with a forced smile before looking at Taoist Beiyan. He saw that the latter's aura was extremely dispirited, as if he had aged dozens of years. His cultivation base had even regressed to beginner stage god transformation. He said in a deep voice, How did you become like this? Taoist Beiyan carefully looked around before sighing faintly. Fellow Yi, this place isn't safe. Please follow me. After saying that, he led Yi Chen into the rotten mass grave. Outside the mass grave, Ning, Xiao, and the rest stared at the outside world vigilantly. From time to time, they would look at the karst cave behind them. Xiao's gaze paused at the entrance of the karst cave for a few seconds before he said in surprise, I didn't expect him to be Mad Southerny. He still could not forget what had happened earlier. He thought that someone had found out about their whereabouts and kidnapped Ning, to find them. Who would have thought that that person was their idol? Senior Yi is very powerful. Ning, told them everything about meeting Yi Chen with a flushed face. Xiao and the rest could not help but be shocked after hearing that, especially when they found out that the young man in black that Yi Chen brought killed a perfected god transformation powerhouse. Instantly, they were extremely glad. They were glad that the Patriarch of Hell had shown mercy earlier. The narrow and dark underground karst cave was filled with the pungent and nauseating stench of corpses. The uneven ground was filled with corpses. At this moment, there was a green-clothed old man seated in this filthy place. He did not move, and his eyes were tightly shut, as if he was no longer breathing. If one took a closer look, they would notice that one of the old man's arms no longer existed. It was as if it had been ruthlessly torn apart by someone, and blood dyed his clothes red. The elderly man was none other than Lei Yunzi. Yi Chen placed a hand on the old man's wrist as his eyes flickered nonstop. Meanwhile, the Patriarch of Hell and Taoist Beiyan stood aside. In particular, Taoist Beiyan had a nervous expression on his face. A moment later, Yi Chen slowly let go of Lei Yunzi's hand. Seeing this, Taoist Dark North immediately asked, How is it? Fellow Taoist Yi. Not very optimistic. Yi Chen said in a deep voice, His injuries are too severe. The vitality in his body has been severely depleted. He has less than a tenth of it left. Furthermore, he seems to have performed some secret technique that damaged his divine consciousness, so he's in self-defense mode. To put it more accurately, Lei Yunzi was no different from a living dead man right now. The only fortunate thing was that he still had a trace of obsession supporting him. Could it be that he's hopeless? Taoist Baiyan's body trembled as he suddenly knelt heavily in front of Yi Qin. "Fellow Yi, I beg you to cure Lei Yunzi. He's never betrayed you." Yi Chen hurriedly helped him up and said with a frown, "It's not that there's no way, but you have to tell me what happened first." Taoist Baiyan smiled bitterly and said, "That day you caused too much of a commotion outside the desolate god's tomb. You even killed the patriarch of Huangfu. When Lei Yunzi returned, he was immediately targeted." "Was it Su Qilin and the Gu family's patriarch?" Yi Chen asked. "That's right." Taoist Baiyan sneered. As soon as the two of them returned, they held an emergency meeting and pointed the finger at Lei Yunzi, accusing him of being a disaster to the country and the people. They even asked the elders to punish him. Yi Chen's eyes flashed, as expected. At this point, Taoist Baiyan could not help but glance at Yi Chen. "The Gu family's patriarch suggested informing the outside world to use your family to force you to hand over the emperor's seal." As soon as he finished speaking, the temperature in the karst cave suddenly dropped, as if a chill had filled everything. Yi Chen said with a fake smile, "Very good, very good." This suggestion was first opposed by Lei Yunzi. Taoist Baiyan sighed softly. Apart from Lei Yunzi, there were also the Qin family and the Ji family, who were on good terms with the Lei family. After that, this conflict intensified, and the 5 great families led by the Gu family started a war with Lei Yunzi and the others. The outcome was obvious. He closed his eyes as if his heart was aching. The Qin family's patriarch and the Ji family's patriarch didn't have much time left. They died on the spot in the battle. However, before they died, they bought time for Lei Yunzi and me. That was how we escaped. Even so, Lei Yunzi was still seriously injured in the battle. He managed to escape with us all the way here with his last breath, and then he fell into a coma. He could not help but cry. The Xianyuan 8 clans were originally the top forces in China. Who would have thought that such a great calamity would happen today, causing China's power to be greatly weakened? At the end of the day, the Gu family and the others are blinded by greed. Yi Chen snorted coldly and said, "These so-called ancient clans are just rotten and stinky existences. How can they be so selfish? Do they deserve to be called Xianyuan? I'll destroy these evil dogs sooner or later." After saying that, he immediately turned around and looked at the unconscious Lei Yunzi. If you want to save him, you need to refine the soul-nurturing pill and the rebirth pill. However, the materials needed for these 2 pills are extremely complicated. It's easier said than done. Materials for refining pills? Taoist Baiyan was slightly stunned. Then he handed a storage bracelet to Yi Chen. "This is a portion of the Lei and Qin family's accumulation. See if you want it." Yi Chen took it and permeated it with his divine consciousness. He immediately looked through most of the things inside and shook his head. "Not enough, not enough. I'm still missing 3 main ingredients." After saying that, he could not help but look at the Patriarch of Hell. "Patriarch, why don't you make a trip back to the Panwu Immortal Sect and see if there's anything in the secret vault?" The Patriarch of Hell nodded slightly and was about to agree. However, the sound of something tearing through the air suddenly came from outside, mixed with an extremely cold voice. "They're here. Find them, even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground." Hearing this voice, Taoist Baiyan's expression abruptly changed. "Not good. Our whereabouts have been exposed. The 4 great sects of Moli City must have found us. They've been searching for us all this time." However, Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell were not shocked. Instead, they laughed. They came in time. "Perhaps we won't have to go through so much trouble now." End of this chapter. Chapter 1585. Outside the mass grave, along with the billowing smoke and dust, several powerful auras landed together and sealed off a radius of dozens of kilometers. The invisible killing intent caused many living beings here to feel uneasy. Among the few figures, an old man with a hooked nose in a red shirt slowly walked out. The old man looked around with a gloomy gaze. The 4 great sects of the Great River sect had ruled Moly City for many years, but this was the first time a powerhouse from the sect had been killed in public. If they did not find the murderer and tear him into pieces, how could the 4 great sects establish themselves in Moly City in the future? Following his order, the figures behind him landed on the ground and began a carpet search around the mass grave. In the ravine of the mass grave less than 3,000 meters away from them, the expressions of Xiaowu and the rest changed. The expressions of Xiaowu and the others changed, and they held their breaths. A young man lowered his voice and said, "Oh no, they have found us." Ning, quickly informed Senior Beiyan and the others to move quickly. "Who is it?" The moment he spoke, someone immediately sensed it. "They're over there!" Boom! As soon as he said that, the red-robed old man's divine consciousness swarmed over and immediately sensed the whereabouts of Xiaowu and the rest. Then his figure flashed and attacked them like lightning. Oh no! At that moment, all the hairs on Xiaowu's body stood on end. Although the pressure was not fatal, it made them unable to resist at all. They were filled with despair and helplessness. Ha! Another piece of trash who bullies juniors. At this moment, a cold laugh exploded in the red-robed old man's mind. Before the red-robed old man could react, he suddenly saw a huge palm slap over. Bang! At that moment, all the defensive treasures on the red-robed old man's body erupted. Even so, he was still sent flying hundreds of meters away before he spat out a mouthful of blood. Who is it? In the blink of an eye, the figures gathered together and looked behind Xiaowu and the rest as if they were facing a great enemy. A young man in black slowly walked out. Behind the young man in black was a young man in green with his hands behind his back. Who else could it be but the Patriarch of Hell and Yi Qin? The red-robed old man glared at Yi Qin and the Patriarch of Hell. His gaze landed on the Patriarch of Hell. Are you the person who killed my Big River sect? Are you talking about that trash surnamed Wu? Old Ancestor Yellow Spring chuckled. That's right. He was indeed killed by me. He's too useless. After all, he's just a piece of trash who relied on pills to forcefully improve himself. The red-clothed old man could not help but be furious when he heard that. Sir, do you know that Elder Wu is a member of the Great River sect? Your actions are equivalent to looking down on the Great River sect. So what if I don't care? Patriarch Yellow Spring smirked. You're courting death. The red-robed old man and the others were incomparably furious. Kill him. Boom! In an instant, 5 terrifying auras charged at the Patriarch of Hell and Yi Qin like a tornado. The space shattered wherever they passed. Patriarch Yellow Spring casually slapped out with his palm, and the terrifying attack of the 5 collapsed on the spot, turning into boundless surging energy. Void Training Stage. This man is an old monster at the Void Training Stage. The red-robed old man suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. You're not too stupid. Unfortunately, you found out too late. The Patriarch of Hell sneered. He took a step forward, and a vast pressure covered the area. 4 of them turned into bloody mist on the spot. Only the red-robed old man screamed and prostrated on the ground. His eyes were filled with fear. Senior, it's a misunderstanding. This is a misunderstanding. In the next moment, Yi Qin pressed his palm on the top of his head and performed the soul-searching tactic forcefully. He ignored the man's screams and said, What a Gu family, what a so-called Xianyuan 8 clans. In order to eliminate them, You actually threw out something like the void soaring dragon pill. After saying that, he glanced at the Patriarch of Hell and said, "Watch them here. I'll go destroy the sect and kill them." Before the Patriarch of Hell could speak, he disappeared from where he was. Yi Qin took a step out. When he appeared again, he had already landed in Moly City. He forgot to take a look at the mountain range that seemed to stand at the top of the clouds. After that, his figure turned into a long rainbow and landed on the huge mountain range. What came into view was a barrier that seemed to cover the entire world. The barrier was blue in color, and it was a natural moat set up by the 4 sects to prevent mortals from entering. Beside the barrier, there was a stone tablet that said, "For immortal sects, trespassers will die." Yi Qin placed his hands behind his back as if he did not see it. Subsequently, he threw a punch at the light blue barrier. Rumble! His punch was extremely resplendent, like the sun falling. Instantly, countless ripples appeared on the light blue barrier. The ripples grew larger and larger, and in the end it turned into countless fragments with a bang and scattered in all directions. One punch to destroy the sect. Following the destruction of the light blue spirit formation, the empty space suddenly changed. Pavilions, terraces, and towers appeared before him like a fairyland. Who dares to barge into the 4 great sects? You're courting death. At the same time, a series of furious voices rang out. Then dozens of powerful auras shot over from afar. Yi Qin scanned with his divine consciousness. Among those auras, they were all on the soul formation stage. 8 of them were even at stage soul formation. The dozens of people surrounded Yi Qin. The intense killing intent was like a blade gleam. They could not wait to tear Yi Qin into pieces. Seeing that Yi Qin was alone and so young, the middle-aged scholar who was pointing at the treasured fan took a step forward and said, "You broke the formation of the 4 great sects for no reason. If you don't explain yourself, you won't be able to leave alive today." "Is everyone here?" Yi Qin asked instead. "You're courting death." A late-stage god transformation stage, Cultivator shouted and immediately took a step forward. His arms expanded in the wind and turned into 2 ferocious shadows that looked like horned dragons at a speed visible to the naked eye. They charged at Yi Qin. Yi Qin glanced at him expressionlessly. That person let out a blood-curdling scream as both his arms were forcefully shattered. After that, his entire body rapidly fell from the sky, and he died on the spot. A late-stage soul formation cultivator was killed instantly. The expressions of the dozens of figures surrounding Yi Qin changed when they saw that. Their eyes were filled with fear when they looked at Yi Qin again. The middle-aged scholar's pupils constricted. "Who exactly are you?" "Forget it. All of you can die." Yi Qin shook his head lightly. Subsequently, he extended his hand and turned it into a huge hand that covered the sky. He pressed down gently from above everyone's heads. The void immediately collapsed, as if it was splitting the world apart. Apart from the middle-aged scholar, everyone was enveloped within it. End of this chapter. Chapter 1586. As Yi Qin's palm that covered the sky pressed down, rumble! The endless mountain range was forcefully flattened. The earth shook and endless cracks were like a giant spider web. It was a scene of devastation, as if something terrible had happened. Meanwhile, the dozens of figures that were shrouded by the giant palm disappeared instantly. Yi Qin's methods were heaven-defying. He did not use too great a divinity. He merely slapped with his bare hands, causing the mountain range to collapse and the ground to crack. Dozens of soul formation cultivators were killed. The middle-aged scholar who spoke earlier was also the only survivor. At that moment, he was trembling incomparably, and his body was like a sieve. Such methods were beyond his understanding. P-void refinement, old monster. That was the only thought left in his mind. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, countless auras were still rushing over from all directions. When they witnessed Yi Qin's methods earlier, they were so shocked that they could not speak. Was he still human? Yi Chen's gaze shifted and landed on the middle-aged scholar. The latter immediately felt a gaze that was as cold as a knife coming at him. He shuddered subconsciously and looked at Yi Chen in fear. "Senior, die." Yi Chen spat softly. His divine consciousness was like a blade that shrouded his mudball palace. "Ah!" The middle-aged scholar screamed and fell to the ground, dead. Yi Chen turned around again and looked at the people who were gathering around him. The gray-robed old man who was leading the group looked at him with bloodshot eyes. Why? Why? He was the supreme patriarch of the Great River sect, and he was also a half-step void refinement cultivator. The middle-aged scholar who died in Yi Chen's hands earlier was his only son. He had never provoked Yi Chen before. He did not know why he started a massacre the moment he arrived. Why? Yi Chen smirked coldly. Good question. Forget it. I won't let you guys die without regrets. You guys really don't know what's good for you. How dare you hunt down a powerhouse from China? Lei Yunzi, you deserve to die. Plop. As soon as he finished speaking, the gray-robed old man knelt heavily. His face was ashen, and his eyes were filled with deep regret. From the moment Yi Chen mentioned Lei Yunzi, he knew that the 4 major sects, including his Great River sect, were finished. In order to eliminate Lei Yunzi once and for all, the Gu family had released news that they were willing to offer a Rising Void Dragon Pill as a reward, and the Rising Void Dragon Pill could help one advance to the spatial tempering stage. Such a thing was naturally extremely precious to the 4 sections. Never had he thought that Yi Chen would be willing to come to Moli City to destroy the 4 major sects for Lei Yunzi. I've said it before, the Chinese are not to be bullied. Yi Chen glanced at everyone, and his voice was extremely cold. Not to mention humans. Even if it's a blade of grass, a tree, or a dog in China, if you dare to step on it, I'll slaughter your entire family. Disciples of the 4 sects, kill him. Hearing those words, the gray-clothed old man's eyes turned blood-red. Like a mad demon, he furiously roared, "Those who disobey will be killed without mercy. Kill." As soon as he said that, many people revealed hesitation, but in the end, it was replaced by ruthlessness. Immediately, countless figures charged at Yi Chen fearlessly. Their families were all in the 4 major sections. Their interests were tied to the 4 major sections. Even though they knew that Yi Chen's might was unstoppable, they had no other choice but to fight to the death. Your final struggle. Yi Chen's eyes flashed as he took a step forward. Immediately, the earth shook and the mountains shook. The void shattered, and many figures screamed as they fell to the ground and died. "I'll fulfill your wish today." His expression was cold as he suddenly shouted, "Lightning!" At the same time, everyone in Moli City looked at the 4 major sects in shock, their eyes filled with fear. That was because, in their eyes, it was as if the sky had been torn apart and endless lightning descended. It was like the apocalyptic lightning tribulation. It was heaven's might, an irresistible will. In the end, the lightning dissipated, and the world seemed to have fallen silent. Some people could not hold back their curiosity, and in the end, they rushed to the place where the battle had erupted. The scene that entered their eyes caused them to suck in a breath of cold air. Tragic, incomparably tragic. The entire ground seemed to have been plowed. Countless mountains were forcefully erased, and not a single blade of grass grew within a radius of 100,000 feet. As for the 4 major sects that countless people envied and respected in the past, they had long since vanished into thin air. Not a single person was left alive. The 4 major sects were actually destroyed by a single person. Everyone's scalps went numb, and they were extremely terrified. An hour later, at the mass grave, Taoist Beiyan, the patriarch of hell, and the rest stared fixedly at the terrifying dark clouds in the sky. Lightning and fire faintly intersected there, brewing a heart-palpitating aura. From time to time, the roars of dragons and tigers could be heard from the void. At that moment, there was a figure enveloped by endless pill chi. The Patriarch of Hell's eyes were filled with admiration. Judging from this phenomenon, the medicinal pill must be about to be completed. I'm afraid it's not inferior to a heavenly pill. He did not expect Yi Chen's alchemy attainments to have reached such a level. He could actually multitask and refine 3 different medicinal pills at the same time. While Taoist Beiyan was pleasantly surprised, he said worriedly, "This medicinal pill actually attracted such a powerful tribulation cloud. What about fellow Yi?" The pressure brought by the tribulation cloud made even his heart palpitate. The Patriarch of Hell smiled without saying anything. "Just watch." An hour, 2 hours, boom! Following an earth-shattering thunderous roar, 3 medicinal pills wrapped in white light floated quietly in the air. From afar, they looked like 3 small suns. Immediately after, 3 true spirit phantoms rose into the sky. The 3 phantoms were dragons, phoenixes, and tigers. They were incomparably dignified, and the moment they appeared, the entire thundercloud boiled. At the same time, an intoxicating pill fragrance began to cover the entire world. It was as if one would become 10 years younger with just a whiff. The medicinal pill succeeded. Taoist Beiyan was extremely excited. "This is only the beginning," the Patriarch of Hell said indifferently. "The birth of a medicinal pill of this grade will cause the heavens to be jealous, and then a pill tribulation will descend. It's the same for medicinal pills. If they don't experience tribulation lightning, how can they become peerless heavenly pills?" Kacha! At that moment, 3 bolts of tribulation lightning as thick as a baby finally descended from the terrifying dark clouds. Even if it was just a sliver, it caused everyone's scalps to go numb. Boom! The 3 bolts of tribulation lightning landed accurately on the 3 medicinal pills. The 3 heavenly pills immediately emitted a dazzling white light, as if they were frantically digesting the terrifying tribulation lightning. Oh my God, so terrifying! Ning, and the others turned pale from fright. However, this was only the first wave. End of this chapter. Chapter 1587. Boom! At the next moment, countless bolts of tribulation lightning that were even stronger than before descended again. This time, the tribulation lightning not only struck the 3 heavenly pills, but it also enveloped an area of 3,000 meters in radius, as if it wanted to destroy everything. The terrifying aura that spread out could even be sensed by living beings 100 kilometers away. Then they prostrated themselves on the ground and trembled. From the beginning to the end, Yi Chen's expression was extremely calm. Finally, the last 3 bolts of tribulation lightning descended. Will it succeed? This time, Yi Chen's eyes flickered. The power of the last wave of tribulation lightning was something that even beginner stage, void, refinement, old monsters would have to retreat. Once the 3 heavenly pills could not hold on, all their previous efforts would be in vain. Rumble! As soon as the last 3 bolts of tribulation lightning descended, they transformed into 3 enormous lightning dragons that roared over. They were only as thick as a bucket, and one could clearly see the ferocious scales on their bodies. The Patriarch of Hell's expression changed slightly. With a wave of his sleeve, he protected Ning, and the rest to prevent them from being affected. At the same time, the entire world seemed to have turned into a lightning prison. Everywhere they saw was extremely dazzling, and everyone closed their eyes subconsciously. Only Yi Chen's eyes were flickering with golden flames. He stared at the center of the lightning tribulation without moving. Finally, when the lightning dissipated, 3 dazzling medicinal pills that emitted a golden luster kept spinning in the air, and a faint, earth-shaking roar could be heard from within. Success! Taoist Beiyan cried out in ecstasy. The Patriarch of Hell said from the bottom of his heart, "Amazing!" Whoosh! At this moment, the 3 pills in the void suddenly shot out in 3 different directions. They were extremely fast and disappeared in the blink of an eye. They're running? They're running. Ning, and the rest shouted. "Three little guys, do you think you can run away?" Yi Qin smiled lightly. He extended his hand and covered a radius of 30,000 meters. In the blink of an eye, 3 pocket-sized images of dragons, phoenixes, and tigers appeared in his hand. They roared at Yi Qin nonstop. The pills were peerless and had their own spirituality. They wanted to escape the fate of being devoured. Yi Qin opened his mouth and spat. A stream of purple energy landed on the 3 shadows immediately. The latter turned into 3 golden medicinal pills. In the next instant, he descended to the ground and helped Lei Yunzi up before flicking 2 of the pills into Lei Yunzi's body. 3 days. I only need 3 days. Yi Qin glanced at Taoist Beiyan, who looked nervous. He'll need 3 days to digest these 2 medicinal pills. He'll wake up naturally after 3 days. Taoist Dark North instantly let out a sigh of relief. The Patriarch of Hell said with a faint smile, "Old Man Beiyan, Old Man Leiyin can be considered to have benefited from this disaster. Fellow Taoist, Yi has refined such a medicinal pill to save him. Perhaps he might be able to advance further." Taoist Dark North stared blankly for a moment, but then he seemed to recall something. A look of utter disbelief appeared on his face. "Are you saying that fellow Taoist Thundercloud might be able to step into the late spatial tempering stage?" "That will depend on his fortune." Yi Qin smiled lightly and handed the last medicinal pill in his hand to him. "This medicinal pill is yours. Take it. Not only can you recover from your injuries, but you might even be able to enter void refinement." "Thank you, fellow Yi." Taoist Dark North cupped his fists heavily, tears streaming down his face. "I still have important matters to attend to, so I won't stay any longer." Yi Qin looked at the Patriarch of Hell and said, "Patriarch, bring them back to the Panwu Immortal Sect. I'll meet you guys when I find Yang Tian." "All right." The Patriarch of Hell nodded slightly. Almost at the moment, Yi Qin destroyed the 4 major sects of Moli City. In the Yanhuang Fortress, many giants gathered together. The atmosphere was deathly silent. An old man with a face full of age spots smiled sinisterly. "I didn't expect Lei Yunzi to be saved by mad Southern Yi. How lucky!" He was the Qi family's patriarch of the 8 Xianyuan clans. He was also the person who supported the Gu family's patriarch during the internal strife of the 8 Xianyuan clans. The moment the Qi family's patriarch finished speaking, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. An old man with white hair and a youthful face frowned and said, "If Lei Yunzi doesn't die, we won't be able to sleep or eat in peace." Although the Gu family had won the internal strife of the 8 Xianyuan clans, the impact was not good. There were many complaints among the younger generation and the upper echelons of China. What's the big deal about a mere Lei Yunzi? Following a cold snort, the Gu family's patriarch sneered and said, "The 8 Xianyuan clans have long been controlled by us. Even if Lei Yunzi is lucky enough to recover, he won't be able to change much. We should be more worried about mad Southern Yi." The moment that was said, the hall fell into dead silence. Mad Southern Yi. That name had become their nightmare in recent days. Even the patriarch of Huangfu had died in his hands. If any of them were to encounter him, they would definitely not be able to guarantee that they would be able to survive. Right at this moment, a calm voice suddenly sounded in the hall. "Patriarchs, there's no need to worry." Everyone looked over and saw a silver-haired young man slowly walking out. It was Huangfu. Many of the void refinement old monsters present did not dare to put on airs with him because he was the reincarnation of the Huangfu family's peerless patriarch. This peerless patriarch was once known as the #1 person in the 8 Xianyuan clans. He was only one step away from the legendary spirit severing stage. In order to find a way to step into the spirit severing stage, he did not hesitate to give up thousands of years of his lifespan to reincarnate. Therefore, after the patriarch of Huangfu died, Huangfu naturally became the leader of the Huangfu family and even recovered his early stage, void, refinement stage, cultivation base. The Gu family's patriarch's eyes flashed. Huang Fuyu, do you have any good ideas? I don't dare. Meeting everyone's gaze, Huang Fuyu said calmly. It's true that Mad Southern Yi is monstrous, but don't forget that he's only one person after all. This person has already offended the 5 Holy Lands, including the 8 Xianyuan clans. The Qi family's patriarch frowned and interrupted him. Don't forget that Mad Southern Yi has the support of the sect master of human desires and Qianqiu Wuhin. Many people nodded immediately. Qianqiu Wuhin and the sect master of human desires were like 2 mountains above the 5 Holy Lands, coupled with the mysterious zombie Ing. That was the reason why the 5 Holy Lands did not dare to attack Yiqin at all costs. It's true that the sect master of human desires and Qianqiu Wuhin are powerful. Huang Fuyu smiled lightly and said, however, have you ever thought about why the sect master of human desires and Qianqiu Wuhin don't dare to go to such extremes, even though they have the strength to sweep through the 5 Holy Lands? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone fell into silence. Countless people's eyes flickered nonstop, as if they were thinking about the meaning behind his words. Someone said, in that case, what are Qianqiu Wuhin and the sect master of human desires afraid of? Could it be the World Guardian and the Holy Ape? Huang Fuyu shook his head slightly and smiled without saying anything. Everyone became even more silent. Suddenly, the Gu family's patriarch stood up and stared at Huang Fuyu. He slowly spat out 6 words. Heaven Illuminator. Chapter 1588. In the empty and bright world. There were many green plants on the huge plains. There were many green plants on the vast plain, and all of these plants emitted a demonic aura. From afar, they seemed like venomous snakes that were silently waiting for their prey. A waterfall poured down like the Milky Way. At that moment, the waterfall that was several meters wide with a huge impact was suddenly cut off from the middle. Then, a skinny young man walked out slowly. Yi Chen lifted his eyes and looked around. There was a strange look in his eyes. Is this the wasteland? According to Old Man Black Ice, the core of the Inshu ruins was divided into many areas. There were human cultivators living there, and there were also local living beings living there. The wasteland was where the local living beings of the Inshu ruins lived. Yi Chan mumbled to himself. If I remember correctly, the merfolk are in the southernmost part of the wasteland. It's close to the water. When he thought up to here, he stopped hesitating and dashed towards the south, and everything he saw along the way caused him to be extremely shocked. He saw an incomparably huge snail, and there were more than 10 figures standing on the snail. There were men and women, but their attire was extremely wild and ancient. The snail's speed was comparable to the high-speed rail on Earth. Its pair of antennae seemed to be equipped with the most advanced radar, and it walked through the dense forest as if it was walking on flat ground. However, the strongest among them was only at nascent soul. Yi Chen shook his head lightly and continued, moving forward. Suddenly, a figure on the ground caught his attention. In the dense forest, there was a figure lying motionlessly. His entire body was almost naked, as if he was smeared with grass liquid, causing him to look no different from his surroundings. He lay there without releasing any aura. If not for Yi Chen's powerful divine consciousness, he would have been fooled. Yi Chen's eyes flashed. What a unique breath concealment technique! Boom! Suddenly, a shocking beast roar came from the forest in the distance, accompanied by the trembling of countless bushes. Then, a monster that looked like an elephant with a mouth full of barbs roared out. In an instant, the figure lying in the grass suddenly moved. He held an incomparably sharp bone blade in his mouth, and a bone spear appeared in his hand. His whole body leaped out and fiercely stabbed at the monster. The monster seemed to have not expected that someone was actually hiding here. It was first shocked, and then it suddenly roared and urged its enormous body to fiercely collide with that person. Crack! Under such a huge impact, The bone spear in the man's hand immediately shattered. However, the man did not panic. He leaned to the side, grabbed the monster's right ear with one hand, and grabbed the bone knife in the monster's mouth with the other, then fiercely slashed the monster's neck. Poochie! Stinking and bright red blood splattered everywhere. The intense pain caused the monster to roar again and again. Its eyes were completely red as it urged its huge body to charge around, breaking many trees in succession. It seemed to have gone completely mad. On the other hand, that person was lying on the monster's back. One hand gripped the monster's fur tightly, not moving at all. The other hand that was holding the bone knife was pressed tightly into the monster's neck, like an experienced old hunter. After 10 minutes, the monster was finally exhausted from excessive blood loss. In the end, it fell heavily to the ground and did not move at all. Blood dyed the ground red. However, that person was not in a hurry to collect the spoils of war. Instead, he seemed to have sensed something and raised his head to look at the void. His eyes were filled with fear. Yi Qin was even more surprised. This person did not have any spiritual energy on him at all. He was probably not a cultivator, but he could discover his existence even though he did not hide his aura on purpose. His eyes flashed, and his body descended quickly. Finally, he landed on the ground and sized up the other party thoughtfully. After seeing him appear, the person's pupils constricted violently. Then he picked up the bone blade and leaped to the monster's corpse. He looked at Yi Chen threateningly and said slowly, "The young beast is mine. I won't snatch your prey." Yi Chen could not help but laugh. Seeing that the vigilance in the person's eyes was gone, he said after some thought, "The young beast is mine." Only then did the person put away his killing intent. He bent down and carried the monster's corpse that weighed more than a ton. He retreated into the distance and began to peel its skin and bones. From time to time, he would look at Yi Chen vigilantly. There's no true energy or spiritual energy in his body, but he has such explosive power, stamina, and agility. Seems like he's a body cultivator. Yi Chen looked at the person quietly. His eyes flickered nonstop as he said, "Do you know how far away we are from the merfolk?" As soon as he finished speaking, several figures quickly rushed over from the forest in the distance. They were all burly men with rough faces. Their clothes were the same as the previous man. Their bodies were almost naked, and their bodies were smeared with green liquid. "Kagu!" The leader was elated at first when he saw the man and his prey. Then he noticed Yi Chen immediately. At the next moment, he waved his hand suddenly. The 4 burly men behind him stabbed at Yi Chen with their metal forks without saying a word, causing a sonic boom to be heard in the air. Impudent! Yi Chen's eyes flashed. He extended his hand and pressed lightly at the 4 of them. The 4 of them cried out in shock. They felt like they could not move at all, as if they were restrained by a pair of invisible hands. Boom! When they saw this, the burly man and Kagu, who at the back, did not say a word. Their figures suddenly exploded, and they split into 2 groups to outflank Yi Chen. The 2 of them had explosive power that the 4 people before could not compare to. However, even so, they were slapped to the ground by Yi Chen lightly. At the same time, killing intent flashed through his eyes. He had just arrived here, so he did not want to bully the weak. However, the other party had done this time and time again, so they could not blame him for being merciless. Right at that moment, an extremely panicked voice resounded from afar. "Fellow Taoist from the outer realm, please show mercy!" Accompanied by deafening booms, an old man with a head full of silver hair, wearing beast skin, rushed over with a walking stick. He walked in the air, and his body faintly glowed with a red luster. Every pore on his body erupted with the power to destroy the void. There were more than 10 people following behind him, and each of them was more than 100 times stronger than Kagu and the rest. Kagu and the rest were overjoyed when they saw who it was. Yi Chen suppressed his killing intent and squinted as he sized up the group of people. His gaze landed on the old man in beast skin. As expected, These people are body cultivators. The strength of their vital energy and blood isn't something that ancient martial artists can compare to. The old man in beast skin also did not have true energy or spiritual energy in his body. However, all 360 acupuncture points in his body had been opened, and the vital energy and blood in his body were so dense that they could kill soul formation cultivators. Chapter 1589. The old man in animal hide stopped everyone from attacking Yi Qin, then walked towards Yi Qin and solemnly cupped his fists. Respected outsider, I am Zhu Li, an elder of the guardian spirit tribe. My clansmen had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive them. His words were extremely sincere, neither arrogant nor rash. Yi Qin glanced at him and waved his sleeve. Kagu and the rest who were restrained immediately regained their ability to move. They instinctively wanted to attack him again. Bastard! Zhu Li became angry and shouted, "How dare you do this in front of a heavenly lord of cultivation? Back off!" The expressions of Kagu and the rest changed, and they immediately retreated to the side. However, the countless gazes that were looking at Yi Qin were filled with fear. Heavenly Lord of Cultivation, this was practically their nemesis. Flying swords, magic treasures, divine abilities, spells, talismans, no matter which one it was, they could all unleash earth-shattering power. Thank you, fellow cultivator. Zhu Li clasped his fists at Yi Qin again. May I know your name? I'm Yi Qin, Yi Qin replied. So it's fellow Yi. Zhu Li's attitude became more and more polite. Fellow Taoist Yi, why don't you come to my guardian spirit tribe and drink a few cups of wine? You can consider this old man's apology to fellow Taoist. Initially, Yi Qin wanted to reject him. However, after considering that he was not familiar with the waste region, he nodded. He wasn't worried that Zhu Li had ulterior motives or was plotting against him. In the face of absolute strength, everything was meaningless. Fellow Taoist Yi, please. Zhu Li was overjoyed and called Yi Qin to follow him immediately. Yi Qin said as he walked, How do you know that I'm from the outside world? I knew at the moment I saw fellow Taoist Yi. Zhu Li stopped and looked at him. She said, That's because in the past 10 years or so, outsiders have frequently entered our desolate region. Every time they come, they will cause a great bloodbath. Wait until you kill so many living beings in the desolate region and plunder so much wealth. To be honest, many existences in the wasteland realm do not welcome your arrival. He shook his head slightly as if he was bitter. Oh, Yi Qin gave a short response and smiled wryly. If that's the case, why did you invite me to the tribe as a guest? Aren't you worried that I'll be like those people? Your Excellency is strong. This old man does not dare to deny it. Zhu Li's expression was calm and not the slightest bit angry. However, I believe that I still have some tricks up my sleeves. If you really do that, both sides will suffer. He didn't hide the warning in his words. Yi Qin smiled and said nothing more. In less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the group arrived at a village. The village was about 1,000 households, and the villagers were dressed exactly like Kagu and the others. The only thing that caught Yi Qin's attention was the stone tower that stood at the entrance of the village. The stone tower was like a towering mountain, and there were complicated and simple patterns carved on it. It seemed to be an eternal existence that would never fall. At this moment, the ground before the stone pagoda was filled with tributes, and there was no lack of ferocious beasts among them. This pagoda is my guardian spirit village's ancestral pagoda. As if sensing his confusion, Zhu Li said with a smile, The ancestral pagoda has a total of 9 floors. According to legend, this pagoda was built by the first village chief of my guardian spirit village. It enshrines the past village chiefs of my guardian spirit village. Yi Qin nodded lightly. He could not help but split a strand of his divine consciousness subconsciously and enveloped the stone pagoda, as if he wanted to pry into the scene inside. Buzz! However, just as his divine consciousness touched the stone pagoda, an incomparably terrifying devouring force suddenly came from the stone pagoda, forcefully devouring his divine consciousness. Yi Chen's expression froze. Interesting. When he wanted to try again, he saw that Zhu Li had already entered the village. Yi Chen could only suppress the urge in him and follow the former. Along the way, he saw an old woman holding 2 stone locks that weighed 250 kilograms with one hand. There was even a child who was not even 5 years old swinging a large cauldron hundreds of meters away. This village is extraordinary. His eyes flickered. First, everyone in the village cultivated their bodies. Second, there was an extremely mysterious stone pagoda. Not long after, he followed Zhu Li into a bamboo building. The bamboo building was not big, but the view was excellent. It faced the stone pagoda at the village entrance and could see the entire pagoda. As soon as the two of them sat down, 2 sturdy women walked over with 2 large jars of wine. They seemed to be fruit wine. As soon as they opened the lids, an incomparably mellow aroma assailed their nostrils. There was also the faint smell of Chinese herbs. Zhu Li took the initiative to pour 2 bowls and said with a smile, "Fellow Yi, this is the medicinal wine of my guardian spirit village. It has a great effect on strengthening vital energy and blood." Yi Chen did not act pretentiously. He picked it up and drank it in one gulp. He immediately felt as if there was a ball of fire burning in his stomach. Then it spread through his limbs and bones. Seeing that he actually drank it in one gulp, Zhu Li immediately revealed a shocked expression. "Fellow Yi, you have a high alcohol tolerance. I don't know, but this medicinal wine is extremely strong. Even I can only drink half a bowl at a time. Otherwise, my blood vessels will burst. To be honest, I've cultivated the body refining Tao before." Yi Chen smiled faintly. Only then did Zhu Li come to a realization. After toasting him 2 more bowls, he stood up and said, "Fellow Yi, I still have something to deal with. Please wait here for a moment." With that, he turned around and left. Yi Chen looked at him thoughtfully. When there was no one around, he separated a wisp of his divine consciousness and enveloped the stone pagoda at the village entrance. As expected, the moment his wisp of divine consciousness touched the stone pagoda, it instantly disappeared. Meanwhile, the stone pagoda remained motionless. Yi Chen's expression did not change. This time, he split a fifth of his divine consciousness. This time, his divine consciousness finally entered the stone pagoda. He immediately felt an ancient aura assaulting his face. This ancient aura was extremely desolate and ancient. The inside of the stone pagoda was rather dark, but the space was wider than he had imagined. Yi Chen controlled his divine consciousness to investigate from the first floor. The higher he went, the denser the ancient aura became. When his divine consciousness entered the highest floor of the stone pagoda, the 9th floor, what was reflected in his eyes caused his pupils to shrink violently. It was a world filled with purplish gold, like a vast purplish gold ocean. In the center of the purplish gold ocean, there was a giant about 300 meters tall, lying quietly. The giant's entire body was purplish gold in color. On its skin, there were many mysterious and heart-palpitating runes slowly swaying. The giant seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. Even so, the breath that came out of his mouth caused the space on the 9th floor to be unable to bear the weight. "This is an ancient body cultivator, Almighty." Yi Chen calmed down slightly. "That's not right. Even a body cultivator shouldn't have such pure physical strength unless it's an ancient wizard." A horrifying thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Suddenly, the motionless giant opened its eyes. In an instant, it was as if heaven and earth had just been created, and the sun and moon had reversed. Chapter 1590. Boom! As the giant opened its eyes, Yi Chen immediately felt a piercing pain in his eyes. It was as if he was looking directly at 2 dazzling suns. The giant's eyes were extremely golden, as if they contained all the flames in the world. That light was enough to scare gods and demons away, and it was that one glance. Yi Chen's divine consciousness was instantly burned. Whoosh! Yi Chen, who was on the bamboo building, stood up abruptly as if he was in an endless world of flames. If one took a closer look, there was a trace of blood flowing from the corner of his eyes. When his vision gradually recovered, Yi Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. His gaze, when he looked at the stone tower again, was filled with shock, so powerful. Who exactly is this person? A glance. The other party had wiped out his divine consciousness with just a glance. There's actually such a person hiding in this tiny village. Yi Chen suppressed the shock inside of him and stood up to leave without saying anything. Ever since he returned to Earth, he had never felt such a threat. Even when he was facing a perfected void refinement powerhouse, he had never felt such a threat. At that moment, countless earth-shaking sounds of something tearing through the air came from afar, mixed with a cold voice. "Fellow Yi, where are you going?" As soon as he finished speaking, Zhu Li, who had left earlier, flew over and looked at Yi Chen coldly. Meanwhile, 18 figures followed behind him. Every single one of their bodies was glowing with a resplendent treasure light. Their vital energy and blood were as vast as a river. These 18 people did not have any true energy or spiritual energy in their bodies. However, the strength of the vital energy and blood that erupted was enough to kill a late-stage god transformation cultivator. I still have important matters to attend to, so I won't stay any longer. Yi Chen's eyes flickered as he said, "I'll disturb you in the future, fellow Zhu." Zhu Li smirked coldly. "Since that's the case, why don't you disturb us for a few more days? Let us do our part as a host." As soon as he said that, the 18 figures behind him charged at the same time and surrounded Yi Chen. 18 terrifying vital energy and blood locked onto Yi Chen. Yi Chen's expression gradually turned grim. "You want to imprison me?" Where did the word imprison come from? Zhu Li smiled insincerely. "I just saw that I got along well with fellow Yi, so I wanted to keep you here for a few more days." "Old bastard." Yi Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. Killing intent gradually surged in his eyes. "Don't think that I don't know that from the moment you invited me to your house as a guest, you never planned to let me go, right? Besides that, if this Yi didn't guess wrongly, the medicinal wine you made this Yi drink earlier contained cultivation dissipation powder." At this point, the temperature of the world suddenly cooled down. Zhu Li's expression changed slightly. Obviously, he hadn't expected that Zhu Li would be able to see through his thoughts. He took a deep breath and sneered, "So what if I am? Unfortunately, you found out too late." He paused for a moment and said with a cold expression, "If I'm not mistaken, you just used the so-called divine sense of cultivators to spy on the person in the ancestral pagoda, right?" His gaze landed on the trace of blood at the corner of Yi Chen's eye. "Judging by your appearance, you've clearly been injured by that person in the ancestor pagoda." Yi Chen chuckled. "Is that why you introduced the ancestor pagoda to me in the beginning? Your goal is to lure me into prying into the ancestor pagoda?" He had more or less guessed Zhu Li's ill intentions. The reason why he did not expose him was because he wanted to see what this old thing was up to. The only thing that surprised him was the giant in the ancestor pagoda. "You guessed right." Zhu Li's expression was grim. "I know that it's very difficult for me to kill you with my own abilities. However, after that lord made a move, you don't have much strength left. What do you have to fight me with?" Yi Chen frowned slightly. "I don't think I have any enmity with you. Why do you want to kill me so badly?" Although he had a misunderstanding with the clansmen of the Guardian Spirit Village, he did not cause any substantial harm to Kagu and the rest. No enmity. Zhu Li suddenly laughed out loud. "What I hate the most is you foreign dogs. We were living well here, but who knew that you would come to this world? You slaughtered the living beings of the wasteland. You actually said that there's no enmity with such a deep blood feud. At the end of his sentence, his expression was solemn, as if he was roaring. Before the foreign sects entered the Inshu ruins was still considered peaceful. Although there were battles between the various clans, it was far from the damage caused by the foreign sections. So you actually think I'm a foreign cultivator? Yi Qin was stunned at first. The killing intent in his eyes gradually dissipated. Then he said, while smiling, I'm afraid you're mistaken. I'm not a foreign cultivator, but a Chinese from outside the Inshu ruins. I hate foreign cultivators as much as you do. You're still quibbling, even when you're about to die. Zhu Li laughed out of extreme anger. The living beings outside the Inshu ruins have long been desolate after countless years. How could there be a powerful cultivator like you? Even if you break the heavens today, you won't be able to escape death. His expression turned cold as he suddenly waved his hand. Kill! Boom! In an instant, the entire space trembled violently, and then it was covered by endless, crazy killing intent and vital energy. Outer Realm Dog, die for me! Zhu Li took a step forward, and endless vital energy erupted instantly, shattering all the clouds in the sky. It was as if he could destroy the entire world with a single move. Buzz, buzz, buzz. What was even more frightening was that the sound of the blood in his body rushing through the walls of his blood vessels was like a landslide and a tsunami. It was as if a peerless, ferocious beast was hibernating in his body and was quickly awakening. Kill! At the same time, the 18 figures surrounding Yi Qin attacked at the same time. Surging vital energy and blood crushed the space. Boom! Yi Qin frowned slightly and threw a punch out. It was like a WYRM emerging from the sea. It charged at Zhu Li in a grand manner. You're courting death. How dare you fight me head-on? Zhu Li snorted coldly as if he was mocking Yi Qin. He threw a punch as well. Starlight surged in front of his fist, and light tore through the sky. Get lost. Yi Qin's eyes shone brightly. Boom! The two of them clashed against each other. Their bodies collided, and the space around them collapsed at the same time. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Zhu Li retreated explosively as he coughed up blood. Silver runes surged all over his body like a red-hot iron, but his face was filled with shock. Aren't you a cultivator? Why do you have such a terrifying body? Waves surged in his heart. It was not his first time fighting with foreign cultivators. To him, other than divine abilities and flying swords and magic treasures, the foreign cultivators' bodies could not withstand a single blow. However, Yi Qin had exceeded his expectations. You guys just won't listen to me, no matter what. Yi Qin's long hair fluttered as he took a step forward. His arms seemed to have turned into two huge millstones as he pushed them forward directly. Since that's the case, I'll beat you guys until you're willing to listen. P.S. There's only one chapter today. One chapter is still owed. 3 chapters tomorrow. Chapter 1591. Rumble. As Yi Qin pushed his arms out, divine light illuminated the sky. The space was like a wave of wheat blown by the wind, collapsing violently at a speed visible to the naked eye. Bang, bang, bang. He was like a peerless god of war as he charged into Zhu Li and the rest. It was as if he was invincible. In an instant, everyone was sent flying, and all of them suffered quite a bit of injuries. Everyone was shocked, especially the Guardian Spirit Village. Many of the onlookers from afar widened their eyes. When they saw this scene, their eyes were filled with disbelief. Their Guardian Spirit Village was known for their powerful physical bodies, especially when the Elder and the 18 Guardian Spirit Village warriors worked together. Even the Void Refinement, Heavenly Lord from the Outer Realm, would die on the spot. However, Yi Qin used the most violent method to suppress everyone. He did not activate the so-called true origin energy or divine abilities. Instead, he used the most primitive physical strength to fight these people head-on. In the end, Zhu Li and the rest were all defeated. Dead silence. The entire guardian spirit village was dead silent. Zhu Li and the rest had extremely ugly expressions. Their eyes were filled with disbelief when they looked at Yi Qin again. The strength of this young man's physical body actually surpassed theirs. They knew very well that if he had not held back, they would have been beheaded by now. After a while, Zhu Li coughed violently a few times. In the end, he looked at Yi Qin. "Are you really not a cultivator from the outer realm?" "Of course." Yi Qin nodded lightly. "If you don't believe me, you can send someone to the outer realm to ask me who Mad Southern Yi is. I believe you won't be disappointed. If it were a cultivator from the outer realm attacking him like this, he would definitely kill them all today and slaughter this village. However, considering that the other party hated the cultivators from the outer realm, he still left them some leeway." Mad Southern Yi? Hearing those 3 words, everyone present was startled. They had been in the core for a long time and never left, so they did not know what was happening in the outside world. Even Zhu Li was no exception. Wait! At that moment, the expression of a bare-chested man behind Zhu Li changed. He seemed to have thought of something and suddenly looked at Yi Qin. "Why, you're Mad Southern Yi?" In an instant, Zhu Li and the rest looked at the bare-chested man. "Tagu! You know Mad Southern Yi?" Meeting everyone's gazes, the bare-chested, robust man called Tagu nodded slightly and said, "Elder, I went out to hunt a few days ago and pursued a prey to the core boundary. There, I saw many Xeno-race cultivators that came from the periphery." "How strong are these cultivators?" Zhu Li's face darkened. Everyone else became nervous. There was a clear boundary between the periphery and the core, and they each ruled over their own territories. Once someone trespassed, it would cause a great impact. Tagu scratched his head and said, "They were very weak. I killed more than half of them, and only then did I learn from the survivors that the reason they trespassed into my core was to escape." Escape? Zhu Li was even more confused. Tagu took a deep breath and said, "It is said that a ruthless person appeared in the periphery. This person killed many people from the 5 holy lands. Even a few void-training heavenly lords from the 5 holy lands died at his hands." As his voice fell, the whole place fell into a dead silence. Especially Zhu Li and the others. Their faces were filled with shock. Void-training heavenly lord. Not only did these few have an extremely intimidating power towards cultivators, even the Guardian Spirit Village was no exception. This was because even the Guardian Spirit Village's #1 warrior, Zhu Li, wasn't the opponent of a void-training heavenly monarch. However, this ruthless person had killed a few void-training heavenly lords in a row. How could this not shock and astonish them? Zhu Li felt a chill run down his spine. If such a ferocious person is a cultivator from the outer realm, then it will definitely be a great calamity for our Insu and entire celestial burial planet. That's right. Such a person would probably be nurtured as a heaven illuminator seed if he were to be placed in the outer realm. It's a pity that great Emperor Xianyuan stepped onto the heavenly path. In an instant, countless discussions sounded between heaven and earth. A moment later, someone could not help but ask, "Tagu is that ruthless person from the outer realm? What's his name?" Tagu glanced at Yi Qin and gulped. "This person is from the celestial burial planet, and he's from China outside of Insu. His name is Mad Southern Yi." Everyone fell into a daze when they heard that. Whoosh! In an instant, countless gazes gathered on Yi Qin. If they remembered correctly, Yi Qin called himself Mad Southern Yi earlier, right? So it's Mad Southern Yi. Zhu Li could not help but force a smile while he was shocked. Subsequently, he clasped his fists at Yi Qin. "Fellow Yi, I failed to recognize you. Please forgive me. Don't worry about it." Yi Qin shook his head lightly and said with a forced smile, "The only thing that I didn't expect is that you guys hate the cultivators from the outer realm so much. If I didn't have the ability to protect myself earlier, I'm afraid by now." Zhu Li's face turned red and he felt even more ashamed. He had schemed so much, but in the end, he had schemed against his own people. The others were also a little embarrassed. At this moment, Tagu suddenly said, "Elder Zhu, Senior, you even obtained the Emperor's seal." "What?" Zhu Li's expression changed drastically again. He stared at Yi Qin fixedly and was extremely excited. "Fellow Yi, why you really obtained the Emperor's seal's recognition?" Yi Qin eventually nodded when he met his gaze. Zhu Li said with a trembling voice, "Fellow Yi, can you let me see the Emperor's seal?" "Why not?" Yi Qin chuckled softly. The Emperor's seal immediately turned into a crimson dragon and shot out. Then it hovered in the air, and an enormous dragon's might enveloped everything. "Emperor's seal, it really is the Emperor's seal!" Zhu Li suddenly knelt heavily on the ground and said with incomparable sincerity, "Zhu Li, the 340th generation elder of the Guardian Spirit Village, greets the Emperor's seal!" Plop! At the same time, everyone in the Guardian Spirit Village knelt down heavily, looking at the Emperor's seal with incomparable sincerity. Yi Chen's eyes flashed when he saw that. He was clearly surprised. The crimson dragon in the air changed into Old Fan's appearance in the end. Old Fan looked at Zhu Li and the others quietly, as if he was sensing them. Finally, he said, "Are you the descendants of Di Jiang?" "That's right." Zhu Li's tears streamed down his face. "When the great emperor stepped onto the path of heaven back then, we followed his orders and waited here for countless years. Who would have thought that after so many years, I would actually be able to witness the birth of the Emperor's seal with my own eyes?" Hearing these words, the bodies of all the people from the Guardian Spirit Village who were kneeling in the surroundings trembled. Clearly, this was the first time they knew their identities. On the other hand, Yi Qin, who was standing at the side, felt waves in his heart. Di Jiang of the 12 witches. This tiny Guardian Spirit Village was actually the descendants of the witches. End of this chapter. Chapter 1592. Legend had it that the witches were born from Penga's body. They were known as the Ancient Witches. There were a total of 12 of them, and they were called the 12 Witches. They were also known as the 12 demon gods. They were born with unparalleled physical bodies. They could devour heaven and earth, control wind, water, thunder, lightning, move mountains, fill seas, and change the world. They were Dijiang, Gomang, Zhurong, Rashu, Gonggong, Xianming, Hutu, Chongliang, Candle Dragon, Tianwu, Xuanzi, and Shebi Corpse. According to legend, in the battle between the Yellow Emperor and Qiyu in ancient mythology, Dijiang, Gonggong, Zhurong, Shebi Corpse, Tianwu, and the other 12 witches had participated in the battle. Who's that giant in the ancestral tower? A thought suddenly flashed through Yi Chen's mind as he thought to this point. He then looked in the direction of the stone tower. Dijiang! Time flies. Old Fan looked at Zhu Li and the rest with a complicated expression and sighed faintly. After so many years, it's not easy for you to still remember the mission given by the great emperor. Zhu Li looked at him blankly. Emperor Seal, since fellow Yi has obtained your approval, doesn't that mean he has the ability to unseal Yin Su? To all the native living beings in Yin Su seemed extremely huge and could not be compared to the outside world. However, it was also like a cage that imprisoned countless people, unable to leave. No. Old Fan shook his head slightly. Obtaining my approval only means that you are qualified to obtain the inheritance of the great emperor. If you want to inherit the ability of the great emperor, you still need to enter the tomb and obtain the approval of the Xianyuan sword. Xianyuan sword. Zhu Li's body trembled violently. Right at this moment, a faint sigh suddenly sounded between heaven and earth. This world is about to start an unprecedented war from tens of thousands of years ago again. What is the fault of the common people? This sudden voice was extremely empty and distant, as if it had crossed endless time and space and came from the distant past. What's that sound? Zhu Li and the rest were shocked. Then they looked around as if they wanted to find the source of the voice. Yi Chen's eyes flashed. He looked at the stone tower at the village entrance by instinct. The stone tower stood quietly as usual and did not move at all. Zhu Li was stunned at first when he saw his actions. Then he looked over as well. He seemed to have recalled something and suddenly knelt down heavily. Ancestor. Elder Fan's expression changed as he said, "Old Emperor, have you recovered?" After a brief moment of silence, the voice from before rang out again. 3 trials and 7 tribulations. How could it be that easy to recover? You are merely dragging out an ignoble existence. 3 trials and 7 calamities, Old Fan sighed softly. Looks like you all paid a hefty price for that battle back then. However, to be able to hear your voice again, this old man is quite happy. If this kid hadn't used his divine sense to spy on me, I wouldn't have woken up from my slumber. The voice pointed the spearhead at Yi Qin. I'm about to fall into a deep slumber again. Once the Emperor's tomb opens, it means that the many tricks left behind by the great Emperor back then will be completely exposed. The suppressed immortal soul will also fight with all its might. The birth of the immortal soul and the demonization of the immortal body. This world will be destroyed in an instant. There's not much time left for you. Zhu Li, from today onwards, all of you should follow this brat. Since this old fellow chose him, it might be the great Emperor's arrangement. With that, the voice gradually faded away. Yes, ancestor. Zhu Li kowtowed heavily on the ground a few times. His old eyes were filled with excitement and sadness. Subsequently, he stood up and bowed to Yi Qin solemnly. Zhu Li greets master. Plop, plop. In an instant, the black mass knelt on one knee before Yi Qin. Their voices shook the surroundings. Greetings, master! Yi Qin was silent. Everything had exceeded his expectations, including the voice that seemed to belong to Dijiang. As if seeing through his worry, Elder Fan said, "Accept it. Since you've obtained my approval, you're destined to bear all of this for yourself and for the billions of living beings. Everyone, please rise." Yi Qin nodded lightly. Subsequently, he lifted his hand and gestured for everyone to stand up. He went straight to the point. To be honest, I've come to the core this time to go to the merfolk. The merfolk? Zhu Li was stunned at first. Then he could not help but say respectfully, "Master, the merfolk are located in the southernmost part of the wasteland, and they're extremely xenophobic." Yi Qin said calmly, "One of my brothers is the son-in-law of the merfolk. I suspect that something has happened to him, so I have to go to the merfolk no matter what." Hearing that, Zhu Li came to a realization. "If you don't mind, I'm willing to lead the way for you, master." "That's great." Yi Chen smiled lightly. An hour later, a giant snail that was over 150 meters long broke through all the clouds and moved like lightning in the air. Yi Chen stood on the giant snail with his hands behind his back. He was still thinking about the stone tower. Subsequently, he could not help but ask, "Elder Fan, is the one sleeping in the Guardian Spirit Village's ancestral tower really Dijiang?" "It must be him." Elder Fan said in a deep voice, "This guy was injured after that battle back then and disappeared. However, I'm still familiar with him. It's really hard to believe." Yi Qin took a deep breath in and said slowly, "So, the other witches also exist in this world?" "I'm not sure about that." Elder Fan shook his head slightly. Although the 12 witches are equally famous, they rarely interact with each other. Moreover, their personalities are arrogant and difficult to tame. After so many years, perhaps some of them have already left this world. Dijiang is very powerful, as expected of a witchcraft ancestor. Yi Chen's eyes flickered as he said, "Now that he's injured, he's already surpassed peak void refinement. I wonder how powerful he was at his peak." As he spoke, he seemed to have sensed something and looked at the ground. As if sensing his abnormality, Zhu Li, who was behind him, immediately stopped the giant snail under her feet. Yi Chen's gaze pierced through the clouds and landed on the ground. In the dense fog, A petite figure was running around in the forest in a sorry state. There were many wounds on her body, and blood had already dyed her clothes red. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, more than 10 figures tore through the air not far behind her. They chased with all their might, and intense killing intent locked onto the former. Swoosh! Suddenly, a dim light appeared in front of that delicate little figure, after which it ruthlessly smashed onto the former's body. That delicate little figure emitted a muffled groan as her body smashed heavily onto the ground, revealing the appearance of a young lady. She spat a mouthful of blood and looked at the old figure who ambushed her with incomparable hatred. Heavenly Evil City, you destroyed the mere folk. The Patriarch will not let you off. Patriarch! The old figure standing in front of her chuckled. That old thing, the Merfolk Patriarch, can't even protect himself. How can he not let us off? After saying that, he slapped his palm at the former. The young girl could not help but reveal a look of despair when she saw that. Kacha! Suddenly, a strange sound came from afar, as if someone had stepped on a rotten branch. Even so, the old figure was shocked. Who is it? Under everyone's gaze, a skinny young man walked out of the forest slowly with his hands behind his back. Yi Chen lifted his head to look at the young girl and smiled lightly. Little sister, I saved your life. Can you tell me about the merfolk? End of this chapter. Chapter 1593. Although the young lady looked afraid when she heard what Yi Chen said, she gritted her teeth. Clearly, she treated Yi Chen as someone who harbored ill intentions toward the merfolk. Yi Chen could not help but smile after noticing her expression. Little sister, to be honest, Yang Tian is my brother. I'm here to look for him. The young lady was skeptical. Your young master's brother? Just when Yi Chen was about to nod, he heard the old voice sneer. Where did this junior come from? How dare you interfere in the matters of Heavenly Evil City? Are you tired of living? Yi Chen's smile did not fade. He merely waved lightly. Kill these noisy old dogs. The people of Heavenly Evil City were shocked at first. Before they could react, they heard a deep voice suddenly coming from the void. Yes, sir! Boom! In a blink of an eye, a godlike figure descended from the sky. In an instant, more than 10 heads flew high into the air, silently. It was Julie who had attacked. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. When the young lady reacted and witnessed the bloody and cruel scene, her face was so pale that there was no trace of blood at all. Yi Chen looked at the young lady again and said, Little sister, look! I killed these so-called people from Heavenly Evil City. That's enough to prove that I'm not from Heavenly Evil City, right? Are you really young master's brother? The young girl looked at him weakly and finally clenched her teeth and said, My lord, I beg you to save the young miss. She was about to kneel before Yi Chen after saying that. Tears the size of beans flowed out like beads with a broken necklace. Young mistress? Yi Chen frowned. The young lady's eyes were red as she said, Young mistress is young master's wife. After something happened to our mere folk, young master brought up the rear and protected young mistress. Don't worry about that. Yi Chen stopped her and said while smiling, You don't have to call me sir. Just call me Brother Yi. Brother Yi, my name is Rui. The young lady wiped her tears and said helplessly, Heavenly Evil City joined forces with many forces in the wasteland to attack our mere folk. Many elders died in battle and our clansmen were captured. I was lucky to escape Heavenly Evil City. Zhu Li's expression changed slightly as he said, The Heavenly Evil City has never had any enmity with the Merfolk tribe. We have never had any interactions, so why are they targeting the Merfolk tribe? Yi Chen's eyes gleamed. What about Yang Tian? He did not expect the situation of the Merfolk race to be so complicated. Rui sniffled and said, I don't know either. When I escaped, the son-in-law was still fighting with them in the clan. Forget it. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Tell me where your young mistress is first. We'll save her first, and then we'll save Yang Tian. Where is Miss? I don't know. Ruaer buried her head in self-blame and said with tears, I sneaked out with Mississippi. Later, someone chased after us and we got separated. By the way, Big Brother Yi, you must save our young mistress. They sent a void training stage powerhouse to kill her. She looked at Yi Chen with pleading eyes as she spoke to this point. Yi Chen smiled helplessly. Do you know the general location? Ruaer pondered for a moment and eventually pointed southeast, and Miss should have run in that direction. Yi Chen did not hesitate anymore. He waved his sleeve and dragged the two of them as he teleported to the southeast. At the same time, his divine consciousness covered a radius of 5 kilometers. At the same time, he asked in confusion, Isn't the Merfolk Patriarch also a void training stage old monster? How did he let Heavenly Evil City break through so easily? The Patriarch is no longer the Patriarch, Ruaer said. The new Patriarch is the son-in-law. Yi Chen thought he had heard wrong. What? Yang Tian became the Patriarch of the Merfolk race? That's right. Ruaer nodded repeatedly as if she was admiring him. After the son-in-law returned to the clan, he entered void training. The Patriarch passed the position of Patriarch to him and announced that he would go into closed-door cultivation. He will take over all the matters in the clan. At this point, her eyes turned red again. I don't know what happened to the Patriarch. We couldn't wake him up, so we were caught off guard by Heavenly Evil City. I hope he's fine. Yi Chen thought to himself. At the same time, in a dense forest shrouded in thick fog in the southern region, killing intent and dense blood energy almost sealed the entire secret order. Amidst the thick fog, there was a bonfire burning brightly at the moment, crackling from time to time. Beside the bonfire, several figures, bathed in blood, were tightly protecting a woman. Behind them, there was despair in their eyes as they stared at the people who had tightly surrounded them. The woman who was being protected wore a purple dress, and her face was so beautiful that it was almost demonic. She seemed to be a peerless demon who could bring disaster to a country and cause countless kings to flock to her. However, the purple-clothed woman's face was as pale as a sheet. If one took a closer look, they would discover a shocking sword wound on her shoulder. Blood was slowly flowing out from it. Young mistress, surrender. An old man with a sinister expression slowly walked out from the black mass of people. The old man looked at the woman in the purple dress and smiled bitterly. Our Merfolk race is finished. Only by surrendering can we preserve our bloodline. Uft. Hearing this, the woman in the purple dress sneered and seemed to be mocking. You Tsang, you traitor of the Merfolk race. Are you worthy of standing out to persuade me to surrender? It's because of traitors like you that the Merfolk race ended up like this today. The old man called Yu Tsang was instantly enraged. So what if you don't surrender? Even if you have 3 heads and 6 arms, you won't be able to leave alive today. Old geezer Yu Tsang, why are you wasting your breath on her? At this moment, a cold laugh came from the black mass of people, and then a black-clothed old man walked out. The old man sized up the woman in the purple dress with a perverted expression. Young mistress Yufeishuan, since you're refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit, don't blame me for not showing mercy to you. Extreme killing intent flashed through his eyes, and then he waved his hand without hesitation. Kill dead or alive. Boom. The quiet forest was immediately covered by endless killing intent. Protect the young mistress. At the same time, the few Merfolk race members who were protecting Yufeishuan roared furiously. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they seemed to be ready to sacrifice themselves. Yufeishuan smiled bitterly, and then she closed her eyes in despair. Almost 20 elites of the clan protected her as they escaped, but only a few were left at this moment. She could not bear to see any more sacrifices. At that moment, numerous voices suddenly resounded in the world. A bunch of trash dares to bully my sister-in-law? End of this chapter. Chapter 1594. Who is it? The sudden voice shocked everyone. Venerable Master Tianhong, Yu Tsang, and the rest stared at their surroundings. Under everyone's gazes, 3 figures walked out of the thick fog slowly. It was Yi Qin and the other 2. Yi Chen's gaze landed on Yu Feishuan, and he said with a light smile, "Ms. Yu, let me introduce myself. I'm Yi Qin." "Why you are—" Yu Feishuan, who had already lost all hope, was stunned at first. Then she seemed to have thought of something, and her delicate body trembled slightly. "You're young Tian's brother? Looks like this guy doesn't value his lover over his friend." Yi Qin shook his head and smiled. "Another 3 people are here to die." Venerable Master Tianhong was not shocked when he saw that there were only 3 of them. Instead, he was delighted. He then waved his hand. "Kill them first?" "Yes," as countless orderly and powerful responses were heard. Terrifying true origin energy exploded. It seemed to have turned into a huge torrent that charged at Yi Qin and the other 2. Rui who was behind Yi Qin, exclaimed when she saw that. "Close your eyes if you're afraid." At that moment, Yi Chen's voice suddenly rang in her ears. Rui closed her eyes by instinct. At the same time, Yi Qin walked toward Venerable Master Tianhong as if he did not see the huge torrent that was charging at him. "You're courting death." A god transformation stage, Cultivator, could not help but sneer when he saw that. Then he conjured a divinity and threw it at Yi Qin. From afar, the divinity seemed to have triggered lightning. However, at the next moment, his vision blurred, and he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. When he lowered his head to look, he realized that there was an incomparably huge bloody hole in his chest. Rui could not help but cover her eyes with her hands and look out through the gap. The scene that entered her eyes shocked her. Facing the attacks of hundreds of cultivators, Yi Chen's figure passed through everyone's bodies like a ghost. Eventually, he landed before Venerable Master Tianhong and the rest. Bang, 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 as a deafening sound rang out. The bodies of the hundreds of cultivators exploded at the same time, turning into a bloody mist that filled the sky. Dead silence. The world suddenly fell into a dead silence. Master Tianhong and the others were dumbfounded. Yi Qin landed before the few of them and smiled lightly. There was a bone-piercing coldness in his smile. "Who gave you the guts to touch my brother's woman?" "You." The esteemed Master Tianhong snapped back to his senses instantly. His expression was terrible, and there was a chill in his eyes when he looked at Yi Qin again. Boom! In the next moment, several people attacked instantly. Terrifying true origin energy exploded like a nuclear bomb and blasted at Yi Qin, an early void refinement realm expert. For perfected soul formation, cultivators attacked together. Merciless. Shui cried out subconsciously, "Big brother Yi, watch out!" Zhu Li, who was standing in the distance, chuckled, "Little girl, these guys can't hurt your big brother Yi." Yi Qin acted as if he did not see the sudden attack from the 5 of them. There was still a smile on his face. However, when the attacks from Venerable Master Tianhong and the others landed on him, when the attacks from the 5 of them landed on him, their expressions changed drastically because they realized that their attacks were like clay oxen entering the ocean when they landed on Yi Qin. They were completely useless. Subsequently, what shocked them even more was that the true origin energy in their bodies froze strangely along with their bodies. It was as if they had been immobilized. Fear, incomparable fear. The esteemed Master Tianhong's heart trembled. His eyes widened as he said in shock, Who exactly are you?" "Fellow, I'm also a member of the Merfolk clan. Please spare my life on account of the young mistress." Yu Tsang was terrified. "You guys touched my brother. Haven't you asked who's behind him?" Yi Qin looked at the 5 of them coldly. "Don't worry. After I kill you guys, I'll go to the Merfolk clan and kill all the powerhouses in your heavenly evil city. I'll send Tianxia Z down to reunite with you guys." Hearing that, the esteemed Master Tianhong roared with all his might. A thunderous sound came from his body. He did not know what method he used to break free from Yi Chen's comfort. Run, I must run. He fled into the distance, frantically. Yi Chen's expression remained the same. After killing the other 4 people with a raise of his hand, he extended his palm slowly and clenched it in the direction of the esteemed Master Tianhong. It was as if he had touched the entire galaxy. Just as he clenched his hand, under everyone's shocked gazes, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the space where the esteemed Master Tianhong was. It was like a ferocious beast that swallowed the former. In an instant, waves of incomparably mournful screams rang out from within the crack. Immediately after, a ghastly bloody mist spread out. The entire world fell silent. Rue, Yu Feishuan, and the rest watched this scene, dumbfoundedly. It was as if they had been petrified, but the shock on their faces could not be concealed. A beginner-stage old monster was killed just like that? Isn't this a little too shocking? Even Julie, who had seen Yi Chen's techniques before, was shocked. He initially thought that Yi Chen's physical body was freakish enough. Never did he expect his godlike divinity to be even more terrifying. Yi Chen landed before Yu Feishuan slowly. It was the first time he looked at the young mistress of the mermaid clan up close. "Ms. Yu, are you all right?" One had to admit that Yang Tian had good taste. Although Yu Feishuan was a mermaid, she looked no different from a normal woman in terms of appearance. Her appearance and temperament were top-notch in the secular world. With that, he flicked his finger, and several streams of spiritual energy swirled into their bodies. They were surprised to find that their injuries had healed significantly. Young mistress, at the same time Rui, who was standing in the distance, rushed over and cried. She blamed herself and was emotional. Yu Feishuan patted her head lightly and then looked at Yi Chen. She said gratefully, "Thank you for saving us, fellow Yi." At this point, she took a deep breath in, as if she could not calm down from the shock earlier. "I've heard Yang Tian mention fellow Yi more than once. I didn't expect to see you today. You're even more terrifying than the rumors say." "You flatter me." Yi Chen smiled lightly and glanced at Rue, with a straight face. "Little girl, do you finally believe that brother Yi didn't lie to you?" Rue's face turned red, and she lowered her head in embarrassment. Yu Feishuan heaved a sigh of relief and said, "With fellow Ye's help, I believe our mermaid clan might be saved this time." Chapter 1595. The smile on Yi Chen's face disappeared when he heard that. He frowned and said, "Ms. Yu, what exactly is going on? Why did the heavenly evil city attack the merfolk?" Yu Feishuan could not help but force a smile. "Fellow Yi, you might not know this, but the merfolk have a treasure known as the Heavenly Jewel. This item can help the adult members of the merfolk transform. However, the Heavenly Evil City somehow heard that our heavenly jewels could help powerhouses in the Void training stage to advance. Therefore, they joined forces with other forces in the Waste Realm who were hostile to our mermaid clan and launched a surprise attack on our clan. This is a premeditated attack because many of the upper echelons of the clan have defected. It was also because of their cooperation that the merfolk were caught off guard." Mockery filled her face as she spoke to this point. Yi Chen nodded lightly and said while frowning, "How many void refinement old monsters are there among the forces that attacked the merfolk?" "4. Yu Feishuan took a deep breath in and said with a serious expression, "Among them, Tian Xiezi is at the advanced stage void refinement, while the other 3 are at the intermediate stage void refinement." Yi Chen's eyes flickered. "In that case, it's not surprising that the merfolk were defeated. After all, you only have the merfolk patriarch and Yang Tian, a powerhouse who has just stepped into the void refinement stage." "It's not that simple." Yu Feishuan shook her head and said, "If the patriarch was here, we might still be able to turn things around. Unfortunately, we couldn't contact the patriarch after he entered closed-door cultivation in the ancestral land. I suspect that something might have happened to the patriarch." "I see," Yi Qin came to a realization at that moment. He then slowly told them about how he had received Yang Tian's severed arm. Yu Feishuan and the rest were shocked. Yu Feishuan's body trembled, and her face turned pale as she said, "What a vicious, heavenly evil city. Looks like something happened to Brother Tian. Nothing will happen to my brother so easily. Don't worry." Yi Qin squinted as a cold gleam flickered in his eyes. "It's just that an existence like the heavenly evil city dares to treat my brother like this. Don't blame me for starting a massacre again." At the same time in the merfolk, blood covered the heavens and the earth. The flames of war hadn't been extinguished, and the entire place was in a mess. It seemed as if a shocking battle had just occurred here, and it was horrifying and horrifying, for elderly figures were hidden in the void. As they breathed, the surrounding space distorted to the extreme, as if it could not bear the weight. Tianhong's primordial spirit fire has been extinguished. Suddenly, one of the white-haired elders opened his eyes. His voice was like thunder shattering the void. "Fellow Taoist Tianxia, fellow Taoist Tianhong is an early void refinement cultivator after all." Another, godlike figure said indifferently. Although he advanced through enlightenment, he still had quite a few tricks up his sleeves. Who had the ability to annihilate him to the point where even his soul couldn't survive? The old man called fellow evil sneered, looking at the entire Yin ruins. "Apart from that person, who else can do this? Don't forget, my disciple died at his hands." As soon as these words were spoken, the void instantly fell silent. "Mad Southern Yi." Someone muttered to himself, "It really is him. This brat is quite fast. From the looks of it, that girl surnamed you has probably been saved by him. So what if he's here? Didn't we put in so much effort and set up this trap at all costs for this brat?" Tianxia Zi faintly smiled. With a flick of his finger, the space in front of him suddenly cracked open and a gigantic cage slowly appeared. There were two figures locked in the cage. One of them had thick eyebrows and big eyes. However, he had lost an arm, and his cultivation base was completely sealed. He looked extremely miserable. Tianxia narrowed his eyes and looked into the distance at the end of the void. A strange expression appeared on his face. "Mad Southern Yi, come. I'll prepare a special gift for you." In the southernmost part of the wasteland, near the sea, on the boundless sea, the originally sparkling surface was now suffused with the color of blood. It was as if the entire surface of the sea had been dyed red. In the distance, one could vaguely see many floating corpses that had turned white from being soaked in the water. Several figures rushed to a floating corpse. They saw that the floating corpse seemed to be a young man who had yet to reach adulthood. There were huge scales on his lower body, and he was like a fish swimming in the water. From his waist up, he was no different from a normal woman. The young girl's face was filled with fear, as if she had experienced despair, fear, and torture when she was alive. "Young mistress, it's Xiaodao!" Rue cried on the spot. She pounced over and hugged the young girl's floating corpse. She sobbed uncontrollably, feeling very sad. "Xiaotao!" Yu Feishuan's body trembled slightly as she looked at the young girl's floating corpse in grief. She clenched her fists tightly. "Don't worry, I'll definitely avenge you." "Looks like the merfolk have suffered heavy losses this time." Yi Qin looked at the river in the distance and saw the many merfolk floating corpses. He then sighed softly. "I hope there are survivors." After saying that, he formed a seal with both hands. The vast seawater in front of him rolled up and turned into a giant water dragon that was over 300 meters long. It soared into the sky. "Let's go." Yi Chan waved his sleeve and stepped onto the giant water dragon with a few of them. They charged toward the center of the sea at an extremely fast speed. Soon, a small island appeared before everyone's eyes. At first, the island was like a drop in the ocean. As they got closer, the island gradually enlarged. Eventually, its true appearance was completely exposed to Yi Chen's sight. Instead of calling it an island, It was more like a huge water city. Judging from the broken crystal building, this place used to be beautiful. Unfortunately, it was now covered in endless bloody light. There were close to 1,000 people standing guard around the island. They seemed to be monitoring the entire sea region for any signs of activity. "What's that?" One of the 1,000 people suddenly cried out in alarm. In an instant, everyone looked in the direction he was looking at. In the distant horizon, a dragon shadow was whistling over, and there seemed to be a few figures standing on the dragon's body. "Enemy attack! Enemy attack!" "Quick, send the signal." Someone's expression changed drastically, and he immediately shouted. In an instant, countless resplendent rays of light that looked like sword gleams shot into the sky. Boom! After the resplendent light rose to a certain level, it immediately exploded like a nuclear bomb, turning into a huge ball of energy that could be seen from a radius of 100 kilometers. In just a few breaths of time, the entire island shook. Boom! At that moment, a shocking palm covered the world like a mountain range that stretched for dozens of kilometers before landing heavily. The endless surface of the sea immediately caved in deeply, as if the bottom of the sea had collapsed. Soon after, thick blood rose from the bottom of the sea. Yi Qin retracted his hand slowly. There was a sinister look in his calm eyes. "I'd like to see who can stop me today." P.S. Chapter 3 updated today. Sorry for the long wait. Chapter 1596. Enemy attack, enemy attack. Seeing that the shocking palm had destroyed all the living beings within a radius of 3,000 meters, everyone on the island immediately became restless. Who dares to make an enemy out of the 4 great forces? It's the young mistress of the Merfolk clan. In the blink of an eye, countless figures with powerful auras stepped out from every corner of the island, accompanied by shocking roars. The invisible killing intent sealed everything, causing the entire sea to seem like it could not bear the burden. "Wait for me here. I'll deal with this mob." Under everyone's shocked gazes, Yi Qin placed his hands behind his back and his body rose steadily. His sleeves suddenly bulged, and he charged at the island alone like an immortal. "Who is it?" The few figures that emerged from the island shouted coldly when they saw Yi Chen's face clearly. The strength that Yi Chen had displayed earlier shocked them, but they dared not attack rashly. They could only delay Yi Chen secretly and wait for the powerhouses from the 4 great forces to arrive. "Didn't you guys set up this trap to lure me out? Now, you're pretending that you don't know me," Yi Chen said calmly as he stood in the air with his hands behind his back. As soon as he said that, an exclamation came from the black mass of people. "Mad Southerny! It's Mad Southerny!" As soon as those words were spoken, the world fell silent. Countless people were stunned at first when they heard those 3 words, and then they fell into endless shock. It could be said that the name Mad Southerny was like thunder in the ears of the entire Yin-Su. After all, the battle outside the wilderness god's tomb was too shocking. A stage god transformation stage old man with a sinister aura stood out and threatened. "Mad Southerny, this is a grudge between us and the Merfolk clan. It has nothing to do with you. I advise you not to interfere, or you'll have to bear the consequences. You're still putting on an act in front of me." Yi Chen's eyes turned cold. "Kill him." The sinister old man narrowed his eyes and waved his hand abruptly. Then, countless figures flashed over like a torrent of steel. There was no end to them at all. Even Zhu Li, who was far away, was shocked by such a lineup. "Kill." In the sky, the eyes of the people from the 4 great forces were bloodshot. There were traces of black gas jumping in the depths of their pupils. Subsequently, they charged at Yi Qin fearlessly. When they were less than 300 meters away from Yi Qin, madness flashed through the eyes of the dozens of people at the front. Rumble. Then an earth-shattering sound rang out. The dozens of people had all turned into a bloody mist. However, it was not Yi Qin who attacked. It was self-destruction. Among the dozens of people, the lowest cultivation level was at the nascent soul stage, and the highest was at the soul formation stage. However, all of them chose to self-detonate. Boom! In an instant, the entire void seemed to have been dyed red with blood. Under the impact of the violent energy, the sea of blood turned into a surging sea of blood that swept everything and spread toward Yi Qin. How ruthless! Zhu, Li, Yu Feishuan, and the rest who were standing far away had a change of expression. Clearly, they did not expect these people to choose to self-destruct instead of fighting Yi Qin. Interesting. However, these dozens of people self-destructing might not be able to hurt me at all. Mockery flashed across Yi Chen's face. Then he chuckled softly. Break! In an instant, a huge hand covered the world and struck out. It was like a mountain range that spanned thousands of kilometers, drowning the sky and causing all living beings to tremble. Bang! The huge hand was like a destructive force that forcefully wiped out the power of the dozens of people's self-destruction. Then it did not slow down at all as it struck the black mass of people. Oh no! Retreat! Retreat! Seeing the huge hand coming at them, countless people's expressions changed drastically. Then they cried out in alarm and retreated frantically, as if they wanted to avoid this terrifying attack. However, they were still too slow. Boom! As Yi Chen's finger landed, all the living beings within a radius of 3,000 meters were killed. When they looked at the sea again, it was directly wiped out. It seemed to have turned into an endless abyss. What kind of divinity is this? Everyone felt the depths of their souls tremble. Even so, 2/3 of the people were lucky enough to survive because they were standing far away. However, the line of defense in their hearts was completely destroyed. Look at my lightning palm. Yi Chen's eyes flashed as he lightly struck with his palm. Amidst the terrifying rumbling, a purple lightning ball landed in Yi Chen's hand from the sky. As Yi Chen pushed his palm out, the huge lightning ball turned into a terrifying world of lightning and exploded. It was like a giant lightning beast that opened its mouth and swallowed the crowd in the distance. With a single palm strike, another half of the people died. Dead silence. The world was dead silent. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear as if they had seen something terrifying. Is he still human? Someone could not stop trembling. This method was already comparable to an immortal. Even the dozen or so stage god transformation cultivators standing in the air retreated frantically at the same time. Their faces were filled with shock. They did not dare to fight Yi Qin head-on. The former's methods were too terrifying. As soon as Yi Qin took a step forward, the people from the four forces retreated frantically. The scene was too shocking. This is what it means to defeat an army of thousands by yourself. Zhu Li, who was in the distance, looked at the peerless figure that looked like an ancient demon lord descending to the mortal world. She could not suppress her shock. The four great forces were actually scared out of their wits by Yi Qin alone. As he looked at the island, a thunderous voice suddenly exploded in the world. Tian Xiezi, are you still going to hide at a time like this? Rumble. As soon as these words were spoken, it was as if thousands of thunderbolts exploded in everyone's ears. Immediately, many people's eardrums started bleeding, and their bodies were almost torn apart. Not long after Yi Qin said that, a chuckle was heard. Mad Southernie, you didn't disappoint me. You really came. At the next moment, for rays of dark light shot over from the island. In the end, they slowly turned into four figures in different attire. The leader had a head full of white hair and a pair of sinister eyes. They were like bottomless black holes that could suck one's soul. The three people beside him all caused the space around them to tremble. Yi Qin fixed his gaze on the white-haired old man in the lead and said calmly, "You're the master of Tian Xiezi?" "That's right, I'm Tian Xiezi." Tian Xiezi looked at Yi Qin quietly with a spurious smile. Subsequently, he said coldly, "The three people beside me are the Dark Beast Monarch from the Dark Corner region, fellow Fu Xian from the hidden immortal ridge, and fellow San Luo. P.S. There's still one more chapter. I'll finish it soon. Chapter 1597. Many of the native living beings of the Yin ruins were the core of the Yin ruins. These native living beings had their own camps and ruled by boundaries. For example, the hidden immortal clan of the hidden immortal ridge, San Luo Mountain, and Dark Corner region. Later on, after the foreign forces entered the Yin ruins and attacked the core, the native living beings of the Yin ruins finally accepted the existence of the foreign forces after many battles. For example, the Heavenly Evil City was a force formed by the foreign independent cultivators. Tian Xie was the master of the Heavenly Evil City and was respected by all the independent cultivators. With the appearance of Tian Xie and the other three, Yu Feishuan, who was standing in the distance, could not help but say coldly, "Damn old man, hand over brother Tian." "Are you referring to fellow young Tian?" Tian Xie glanced at her and said with a spurious smile, "Miss you, your husband is still alive. Don't worry. If you want to be with him, why don't you come to my side? I will definitely fulfill your wish." "Fulfill my wish?" Yu Feishuan smirked coldly. "And my grandfather, what did you do to him?" As a late spatial tempering stage expert, the merfolk ancestor was an extremely ancient existence even in the 5 sacred grounds. However, the merfolk ancestor had never shown himself during the attack on the merfolk clan by the 4 sacred grounds. In her eyes, something must have happened to him. "Fellow Yu Taiyuan is safe and sound in your ancestral land." The old man from the Dark Corner region laughed sinisterly. "However, don't have any hope for him. This old man can't even protect himself now." Yu Feishuan's expression changed slightly. "Tian Xie, what your Heavenly Evil City has done to the merfolk with the 3 great forces will not end well if the World Guardian hears about it." World Guardian. The old man from the hidden immortal ridge smiled in disdain. "Since we have the guts to conspire against you, we must have considered the World Guardian. If it was another day, the World Guardian might have the energy to interfere, but I'm afraid not now. All of you set up such a trap with the objective of luring me here." Yi Qin squinted and sized up the 4 of them. He said coldly, "Now that we've achieved our goal, should we hand over my brothers?" "There's no rush." Tian Xie smiled slightly, looked at him, and said, "Fellow Yi, I have long heard of your great name, especially the battle outside the desolate god's tomb. It made me admire you to the extreme. You're merely a native of this abandoned star region, yet you were actually able to grow to such an extent. This is sufficient to prove that your talent and fortuitous encounters are extraordinary." "Humph." Yi Qin scoffed and interrupted him. He said with a scoff, "Did you lure me here just to say such nonsense to me?" Tian Xie was not angry at all. Instead, he smiled and said, "Of course not. I sincerely invite fellow Taoist Yi to join us and seek eternal life with us. The great Tao of eternal life." Yi Qin laughed out loud and said, "You guys are merely on void refinement. You're still worlds away from becoming an immortal. Yet you dare to talk about the Tao of immortality. Are you overestimating yourself, or are you delusional? Wishful thinking?" The old man from San Luo Mountain frowned slightly and stared at him. "Fellow Yi, such thoughts might be wishful thinking in the past, but things are different now. I believe you've heard of what happened tens of thousands of years ago. Great Emperor Xian Yuan challenged an immortal from the lower realm in this world and suppressed the immortal here. As soon as these words were spoken, the world fell silent. After a short silence, an uproar erupted. Even the disciples of the 4 great forces were no exception. What did they hear? An immortal from the lower realm? And he was suppressed in this world. One had to know that Earth was just an abandoned star region. It could not even make it onto the top 100 stars list. Yet it was actually suppressing an immortal? They were not the only ones. Even Zhu Li, who was far away, was no exception. Although he was a native of the Yinshu ruins, he was not born tens of thousands of years ago, so he knew very little. Now that he heard this shocking secret, he was extremely shocked. So what if I've heard of it? So what if I've never heard of it? Yi Chen smirked coldly. Don't tell me that's why you're talking about the great Tao of eternal life. At the same time, the doubts in his heart were finally explained. It turned out that Tian Xiazi and the rest had overestimated themselves and developed a greed for the suppressed ancient immortal. Of course, Tian Xiazi said seriously, we're not the only ones who are interested. Even the 5 sacred grounds are no exception. The reason why existences like the great Jiang God dynasty descended to this world is also for the suppressed immortal. Fellow Yi, the opportunity to become an immortal is right before your eyes. I don't believe that you don't have any thoughts about existence. At this point, his eyes flickered nonstop, however, with existences like the great Jiang God dynasty, as well as sect master carnal desire and the rest. It's very difficult for us to compete with them with our abilities. That's why I joined forces with fellow darkness and the rest to form an alliance. Only by working together sincerely can we obtain millet from the fire. That's right. The Dark Beast Emperor nodded solemnly and said, Fellow Yi, as long as you're willing to join us, we can promise that not only will we return Yang Tian and the rest, but we'll also seek the great Tao of eternal life together. Tian Xizi said, As long as Fellow Yi agrees, I can let bygones be bygones, including the matter of you killing my sworn brother and disciple. Yi Chen acted as if he did not hear them. He looked at the 4 of them quietly and laughed out loud. How dare the 4 of you talk about the path of immortality? Do you think you're worthy to join me? After saying that, he paused for a moment, and his gaze suddenly turned extremely cold. I'll say it one last time. Hand over my brothers, Yang Tian, and I'll leave your corpses intact. As soon as he said that, the world returned to dead silence. The smiles on the faces of Tian Xiazi and the other 3 gradually disappeared. Their expressions became extremely gloomy, and invisible killing intent surged in their bodies. Tian Xiazi took a deep breath in and laughed out of extreme anger. Since you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, don't blame the 4 of us for not giving you a chance. With just the 4 of you trash, Yi Chen scoffed. Since we're going to deal with you, how can we not be prepared? Tian Xiazi was not angry. Instead, he smiled strangely. Mad Southern Yi, I'll show you the gift we've prepared for you today. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly waved his sleeve. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Almost at that instant, the sky changed color and violent winds blew. Endless black energy surged from all directions in the sea, emitting an extremely evil aura. Yu Feishuan and the rest were stunned. What's that? Demonic energy. Yi Chen's pupils constricted slightly. Then he looked at Tian Xiazi and the rest again. I didn't expect you to prepare such a technique for me. If I'm not wrong, you must have become the lackeys of the demonic soil. Chapter 1598. Rumble. Almost at the moment Yi Chen said that, the entire world was covered by endless demonic sounds. Demonic energy formed clouds that were everywhere and besieged from all directions. Endless demonic energy stuck to the surface of the sea like sticky seawater. In the depths of the demonic energy, there seemed to be some terrifying creature that could appear at any time. Zhu Li, Yu Feishuan, and the rest were not the only ones who were stunned when they saw this sudden scene. Even the surviving disciples of the 4 great forces were no exception. They could sense an evil aura permeating from the torrential, demonic aura. That aura caused the depths of their souls to tremble. As countless miserable cries rang out, many disciples of the 4 great forces exploded after being enveloped by the demonic energy. Then they turned into a bloody mist that was devoured by the demonic energy. Many disciples of the 4 great forces revealed terrified expressions when they saw this scene. They screamed miserably as if they wanted to escape from this place. However, they were surrounded by the demonic energy. The only direction they could escape to was the huge island. When many people moved their bodies toward the island, they realized that it was as if they had collided with an extremely hard iron wall. Then they were sent flying back while screaming in pain. When they looked again, the entire island was surrounded by an incomparably grand formation. Tianxiazi and the rest were currently in the formation, looking at the scene outside expressionlessly. "Help! I don't want to die! Sect Master, save me! Save me!" In an instant, all sorts of shrill cries interweaved and shook the world. People were constantly being enveloped by the demonic energy and devoured as food. Tianxiazi and the other three watched coldly. TSK, what a memorable taste! My demon army will enter this world. The billions of living beings in this world are destined to become food and be enslaved by us. After absorbing many food, the monstrous demonic energy grew stronger and stronger. It almost covered heaven and earth. Yi Chan waved his sleeve and consolidated a true energy barrier beside Julie and the rest immediately. "Be careful, this is demonic energy. It contains living beings that have been demonized. This demonic energy comes from the demonic earth." Zhu Li looked at the sky full of demonic qi with a grave expression. His face paled as he said, "These people must have opened a hole in the demonic earth and released the demonic qi." "Your guess is correct." As if he had heard his words, Tianxiazi, who was in the void, coldly smiled. "We have forcefully opened a hole in the demonic earth. Enjoy this feast." "What is that?" Xiao Tao suddenly screamed. The few of them followed his gaze and saw that the surrounding seawater had been demonized. Within it, there were countless strange creatures, struggling as if they wanted to escape. "Monsters," Yi Qin said coldly. "This demonic energy is too dense. It has demonized all living beings in the entire sea region. I didn't think that you would actually side with the demon race." With that, he glanced at the four of them in ridicule and said, "How can people like you, who have given up on yourselves, talk about the path of eternal life? The winner is king, and the loser is a bandit. This has been the principle since ancient times, as long as we can become stronger. So what if we become immortal or demon?" Tianxiazi and the other three chuckled. Then the four of them bowed heavily at a 90-degree angle and said with incomparable respect, "We respectfully welcome Lord Knight Ark, Demon General." As the four of them spoke, an extremely sinister voice rang out from the demonic aura cloud in the sky. "Tisk, TSK, what a brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth." As the endless demonic energy churned and squirmed, it actually forcefully transformed into a black shadow. The black shadow was about twice the size of a normal human. Its eyes were scarlet, and its entire body was surrounded by demonic energy. There was a pair of black bone wings on its back that shattered the void. If one took a closer look, they would discover that there were red patterns on its bone wings, and all of them revealed an extremely evil aura. "Demon General," Yi Chen's calm expression finally changed when he saw the black shadow that suddenly appeared. Although demon generals did not have a high status in the devil world, they were equivalent to perfected void refinement in the cultivation world. Although the demon in Old Man of Great Desolation's corpse was also a demon general, the former had been suppressed by Old Man of Great Desolation for many years, and his strength had declined. However, the demon general that appeared at that moment was a mature existence. He did not expect Tianxiazi and the other three to break the demonic earth and release a demon general in order to deal with him. "Greetings, Lord Knight Ark Demon General." Tianxiazi and the other three knelt on one knee with extremely respectful expressions. The demon general smirked coldly. His scarlet eyes sized up the world. He opened his mouth and swallowed dozens of cultivators on the spot. TSK, what a fascinating food!" As if he was full after eating and drinking, he looked at Yi Qin. "Tianxiazi, is this the mad southern that you guys are talking about?" "Yes, Lord Demon General." Tianxiazi and the other three nodded immediately. End of this chapter. Chapter 1599. Trash. The Night Ark Demon General snorted coldly. This brat is only at beginner stage void refinement, yet the four of you are so afraid of him. What a bunch of good-for-nothings. Tianxia and the rest immediately lowered their heads as if they were walking on thin ice, not daring to retort. Human brat. The Night Ark Demon General glanced at Yu Feishuan and Xiao Tao greedily and fixed his gaze on Yi Qin. My name is Night Ark. I'll give you a chance. Submit to me and give me the blood of the two beauties behind you. I'll grant you the indestructible demon body. Yu Feishuan and Xiao Tao's expressions changed drastically when they heard that. Your name is Chamber Pot? Yi Qin smiled wryly. You really live up to your name. The smell on you is as filthy as urine. Bastard. The Night Ark Demon General was infuriated. What an arrogant human brat. Once I capture you, I'll let you experience what pain is. At the next moment, with a light clench of his fist, endless demonic energy in the air immediately gathered towards him. Then it condensed into a huge black spear. The spear was covered in strange and evil patterns. Tremble, Ant. The Night Ark Demon General shook the black spear in his hand lightly. Then it turned into a shadow and charged at Yi Qin in an extremely overbearing and evil manner. Boom! 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 At the same time, countless demons roared and swarmed over from the demonic energy that enveloped Yi Qin and the other three. Young mistress, Xiao Tao's face turned pale from fear. I'll go fight him. Yi Qin said, Be careful. After saying that, he took a step forward. Then, like a golden rainbow that pierced through heaven and earth, he destroyed countless voids and charged forward. Rumble! In the void that was enveloped by endless demonic energy, Yi Qin seemed to have turned into a golden wheel. The golden light was dazzling like a rising sun. Its light covered thousands of kilometers, and it was extremely dazzling and scorching. Lowly human brat, I'll let you know that any resistance is futile in the face of absolute power. The Night Ark Demon General was not afraid at all when he saw the change. Instead, he scoffed. The black spear in his hand seemed to have transformed into a black dragon that slashed at Yi Qin's head. Heavenly demon slash. Chi! As soon as the black spear appeared, space was instantly torn apart. 1,000-foot-wide crack actually appeared on the surface of the sea below. The might of that attack was truly heart-palpitating. The power of this attack made even Tianxia and the others in the distance feel their scalps go numb. Their reverence towards the Night Ark Demon General grew stronger. Facing this terrifying attack, Yi Qin's expression remained unchanged. He clenched his fingers into a fist and punched out slowly with an indomitable will. Boom! This earth-shattering battle that would decide the outcome of the two camps finally began. As soon as the two of them fought, a huge crack was torn in the void, and then their figures disappeared into the huge crack. Brother Yi, you must win. Xiao Tao's beautiful eyes were resolute as she stared at the crack. She couldn't help but wave her fists and bite her lips. Kill! Zhu Li's physical body was completely unleashed. Like a piece of jade or glass, dense blood energy gushed out, directly suppressing many fiends. Boom! A gem-like light blossomed from the center of Yu Feishuan's brows, causing the surrounding sea to boil as if it was about to pour over. Almost at the moment Yi Qin attacked. In the dark ruins forbidden area, the endless demonic land shook as if the sky was collapsing. Endless demonic roars shook the surroundings, as if some peerless, ferocious creature was born. World Guardian, you can't stop me. Amidst the great terror, a sinister voice shook the entire demonic land. The methods left behind by your master have long since decayed. My demon army has entered this world and is determined to obtain it. If you know what's good for you, you should give up resisting and hand over the ancient immortal's body. The response was an extremely domineering voice. You're just a demon king. How difficult can it be to kill you? Second brother, third brother, I'll hold this demon back. You guys suppress the rest. Boom! In an instant, the entire demonic land erupted with terror. Outside the dark ruins, demon god forest, Qianqiu Wuhan took a step forward and appeared in the chaotic, demonic land in the next moment. He ignored the earth-shattering battle in the distance, and finally appeared beside a huge chasm. He raised his head slightly and looked over. In the bottomless abyss, there was a faint aura that made one's heart palpitate. It seemed to be sleeping. I'm Qianqiu Wuhan. Qianqiu Wuhan cupped his fists towards the abyss and said, Today I'm here to kill the demons. I'm borrowing you. I hope you can sympathize with the billions of living beings in this world. As soon as he finished speaking, the endless abyss was as silent as before. Qianqiu Wuhan's eyes dimmed when he saw this. In the end, he could only shake his head and leave. The moment he turned around, a peerless saber gleam tore through the sky from the endless abyss. Thank you. Qianqiu Wuhan held the dazzling saber gleam in his hand and seemed to murmur, I wonder what kind of existence can subdue such a divine object. End of this chapter. Chapter 1600. Boundless and terrifying ripples swept across the void like a surging ocean. The ripples made it seem as if the sky was about to collapse. On the surface of the sea, Zhu Li, Yu Feishuan, and the rest worked together. Countless demons were killed until blood flowed and corpses were everywhere. Blood dyed the entire surface of the sea red. Tianxiazi and the other three acted as if they did not see this. Their gazes were fixed on the depths of the void. The battle, there was the focus. Rumble. In the depths of the rift, a terrifying storm surged as Yi Chen and the Night Arc Demon General clashed for the first time. The space there was forcefully turned into dust under the might. Heaven-devouring, demonic finger. The Night Arc Demon General's gaze was mocking as his pitch-black finger suddenly streaked across the void. Then an extremely dense black glow flashed past, instantly shattering the surrounding space. It contained a terrifying fluctuation. Under such a terrifying fluctuation, it was enough to instantly kill a late-stage, void, refinement old monster. Boom! In the next moment, the black glow pierced through the void and charged at Yi Chen at high speed. It seemed like it was going to kill Yi Chen with a single finger. Golden pupil flame. In an instant, 2 golden flames jumped out of the depths of Yi Chen's eyes. Then they turned into 2 pillars of light that shot into the sky and destroyed everything. Bang! An earth-shattering sound rang out. The black glow exploded and turned into an endless storm that raged before Yi Chen and the other 2. He actually took it. Tianxiazi and the other 3 who were paying attention to this place were extremely shocked when they saw that. One had to know that even the 4 of them did not dare to take such an attack. The Night Arc Demon General also looked at the figure standing proudly in the distance, with his black hair fluttering in the wind. His mocking face was gradually covered by a gloomy expression. That's interesting. No wonder Tianxiazi and the other 3 are so afraid. In the next moment he grinned, and a cold glint surged in his eyes. Then the bone wings on his back suddenly flapped, and his figure instantly disappeared. But do you think that's all I have? In an instant, the space before Yi Chen distorted. Subsequently, the Night Arc Demon General appeared all of a sudden. He grinned ferociously and clenched his fist lightly. Dense and extremely sharp barbs grew out of his fist at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then he threw a punch at Yi Chen's chest. Yi Chen threw a punch as well. His hand seemed to be made of metal and stone. It was dazzling. He actually ignored the barbs on the former's fist. The 2's earth-shattering attacks instantly caused the surface of the sea to collapse. Many demons were turned into bloody mist on the spot, and the mountains in the distance collapsed. The Night Ark Demon General was shocked. He did not expect Yi Chen's physical body to be able to resist his demon-sealing spike. One must know that the demon tribe's physical body had never belonged to anyone. Kill! The killing intent in Yi Chen's eyes was like a dragon. He bent his finger like a blade and slashed at the Night Ark Demon General. The space in front of him was forcefully split into two, and he slashed at the Night Ark Demon General. As he as to he to he as he to as to. Tianxia Zi and the other three were dumbfounded. The Night Ark Demon General they respected was defeated, just like that? How is this possible? The old man from Sun Luo Mountain exclaimed. He was unable to conceal the shock on his face. To him, the Night Ark Demon General was comparable to Qianqiu Wuhen and the rest. Although Yi Chen was powerful, there was still a gap between him and Qianqiu Wuhen and the rest. How could he be a match for the Night Ark Demon General? However, the scene before them caused them to have no choice but to believe it. Big Brother Yi is so awesome. Xiao Tao and the others were overjoyed when they saw this. Roar! At this moment, an earth-shaking roar suddenly came from the surface of the sea. Then, a black figure broke out of the sea, revealing a rather miserable figure. It was the Night Ark Demon General. At this moment, he was missing a bone wing. There was demonic blood flowing down, corroding everything. It was cut off by Yi Chen's saber. The Night Ark Demon General glared at Yi Chen and laughed from extreme anger. Damn human brat, congratulations on successfully angering me. I'll make you wish you were dead. After saying that, the Night Ark Demon General suddenly roared into the sky. The monstrous demonic energy that enveloped everything suddenly gathered towards him. It covered the sky and the sun. It was terrifying. Great, dark devil body, devil corrosion. As the endless demonic energy was absorbed into his body actually expanded by more than 3 times. From afar, he looked like an ancient demon lord that had descended to the mortal world. His evil aura caused heaven and earth to tremble. Dark soul-devouring palm. The Night Ark Demon General's gaze was ferocious. He stretched out his arm and clenched it tightly. The space within 3 kilometers behind him collapsed, and a gigantic palm that was 3 kilometers in size struck out like the hand of a demon lord that had crossed over from the demon world. Rumble! In an instant, all the remaining spiritual energy between heaven and earth was sucked dry. Even the sea was split into 2, as if it was afraid of everything. Lowly human, enjoy this endless fear. The Crimson Fox Demon General laughed loudly, and his evil aura shook the surroundings. Do you really think you've won? Yi Chen said coldly and attacked. At that moment, Tianxia Zi and the other 3 felt their vision blur. It was as if the world had turned upside down. They vomited chaotic aura and felt dizzy. Ah! Along with an extremely shrill scream, all the strange phenomena disappeared. Everyone was shocked to see a thin figure standing alone in the world, forcibly tearing apart a terrifying black shadow, causing demonic blood to splash everywhere. Lord Demon General? Tianxia Zi and the other 3 widened their eyes. They could not believe what they saw. The Night Ark Demon General was torn into 2 by Yi Chen? That was a demon general. Ah! Lowly human, you deserve to die! The Night Ark Demon General screamed. 3 fellows hiding in the dark, what are you waiting for? The moment he said that, Tianxia Zi and the other 3 thought that he was talking about them. Just as they were about to attack, they saw the space enveloped by demonic energy churn violently again. Hee. As an extremely evil voice rang out, another black shadow appeared in the distorted space. This black shadow also had a pair of dark red bone wings. Another demon general. Not only were Zhu Li and the rest shocked, even Tianxia Zi and the other three felt a chill run down their spines. Knight Ark, I didn't expect you to end up like this. The demon general that suddenly appeared snickered as if he was mocking the Knight Ark demon general in Yi Chen's hand. He then looked at the huge rift behind him. You two can come out too. Chapter 1601. Tisk, TK, I didn't expect us to interfere in such a boring battle. It's indeed boring. As the two voices faded, the endless demonic aura within the distorted crack began to boil once again. Then, two sturdy black figures slowly walked out. Boom! As soon as the two black figures appeared, they stood side by side with the demon general from before. The monstrous, demonic energy that seeped out from their bodies oppressed everyone to the point of suffocation. T3 demon generals! Zhu Li's voice trembled. Yu Feishuan and the other two turned pale. Just one demon general had caused such a terrifying scene today. Now that three more had arrived, were they going to destroy the wasteland? Roga, save me, save me. At the same time, the Knight Ark demon general who was held hostage by Yi Chen roared, If I die, you guys won't be able to explain to demon Lord Night Soul. The three demon generals' expressions froze when they heard the name demon Lord Night Soul. One of them looked at Yi Chen coldly. You human brat, you're quite capable to force Knight Ark to such a state. Hand over Knight Ark and kneel to swear your loyalty to the demon clan. We'll spare your life. Another demon venerable sneered, Lowly human, do you think you can fight the three of us alone? If you know what's good for you, release Knight Ark. Is that so? Yi Chen grinned coldly. Since that's the case, I'll kill the three of you today. At the next moment, resplendent divine flames suddenly erupted from his hand, burning the Knight Ark demon general to ashes amidst his terrified cries. In the distance, Tianxia Zi and the other three were scared out of their wits. Even the powerful Knight Ark demon general was killed by Yi Chen. If they had overestimated themselves and attacked him earlier, one could imagine the consequences. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Chen turned around slowly and fixed his gaze on demon General Luo Jia and the other two. The depths of his cold eyes were filled with killing intent that could make one attack. Then he walked toward the three of them step by step. Crazy, he's crazy. Tianxia Zi trembled uncontrollably. Is he going to fight against three demon generals by himself? With every step Yi Chen took, the space before him collapsed forcefully. Meanwhile, the aura on his body skyrocketed as if a primordial beast had awakened. After seeing the Knight Ark demon general being killed right in front of them, demon general Luo Jia and the other two's eyes turned extremely cold. What an ungrateful human brat! Demon General Luo Jia sneered with a sinister look in his eyes. Let's capture him and hand him over to Demon Monarch Night Soul. Boom! Great netherworld devil fire palm. An evil and cold voice came out of Demon General Luo Jia's mouth, and an astonishing demon flame bloomed from his palm, followed by a terrifying destructive power. Demonic Eye of Nothingness. Sun-devouring demonic image. Boom! Practically in that instant, the three demon generals attacked together. The torrential demonic aura grew even more intense, as if the entire region had turned into an endless demonic domain. Human, how dare you make an enemy of the demon clan? You're courting death. Demon General Luo Jia activated the demon flame and turned it into a black halberd. It pierced through the air and stabbed at Yi Chen's glabella. Ah! Xiao Tao and the rest exclaimed when they saw that. Yi Chen's expression did not change. He slowly extended two fingers that looked like crystal jade. Subsequently, he extended them quickly and grabbed the halberd that was a foot away from his glabella. Even Jiang Xingguo and the other perfected void refinement old monsters who were only a step away from soul-splitting did not dare to take such an attack head-on. However, Yi Chen took it easily with two fingers. Shock flashed through Demon General Luo Jia's eyes when his fatal attack was blocked. He let out a long roar and pulled back abruptly. Then he turned around and attacked. Clang! Yi Chen attacked with one arm and charged at the halberd in an extremely domineering manner. Dazzling sparks were produced from the collision. Meanwhile, the space beside him was forcefully cut off, revealing a vacuum that was nearly 3,000 meters wide. Crack! He grabbed the black halberd with a backhand and exerted force with his 5 fingers. With a crisp sound, the black halberd was crushed by brute force, turning into countless black fragments. This series of actions was completed in the blink of an eye. By the time the other 2 demon generals reacted, there was only shock left in their eyes. The demon general's life demon weapon was destroyed so easily. Divine Punch, made in 33 days. Yi Chen threw out the Divine Punch, made in 33 days at lightning speed, forcing Demon General Luo Jia to retreat step by step and spit demonic blood. Ancient Godfinger. Suddenly, Yi Chen pointed his finger and pierced through Demon General Luo Jia's head. Demon General Luo Jia roared furiously and tried to escape with his demonic soul. However, it was too late. Yi Chen's finger pierced through his demonic soul instantly. As demonic blood sprayed, it was completely destroyed. Demon General Luo Jia was dead. Yi Chen did not seem to see it. He pushed his fists and charged at the 2 stunned demon generals again. Such a scene could be said to be unprecedented. When Tian Xiazi and the rest snapped back to their senses, they were shocked to death. Another demon general had died. Yi Chen had killed 2 demon generals in a row. Too terrifying, this brat is too terrifying. The old monster of Fuxian Ridge's face was pale. Oh no, retreat. The expressions of the remaining 2 demon generals changed when they saw Yi Chen charging at the 2 of them with killing intent. They retreated abruptly. Yi Chen pressed forward step by step. He was extremely domineering, like a god descending to the mortal world. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying aura surged in the world. It seemed to have pierced through the past, present, and future, causing all living beings to tremble. Another terrifying existence had appeared. Sensing the surging demonic energy, the remaining 2 demon generals were overjoyed. They immediately knelt down on one knee and said with incomparably pious expressions, "Welcome, Lord Knight, Soul Demon Lord!" Under everyone's gazes, the endless sea suddenly exploded, and then a colossus broke out of the sea. The colossus was like a whale. It had countless tentacles, and there was an evil eyeball on each tentacle. As the seawater boiled, the colossus rapidly shrank. In the end, it turned into a black-clothed man who stepped out of the water and held his hands behind his back as he rose into the sky. His entire body was black, and every inch of his skin emitted a power that made everything tremble in fear. On his face, there were 3 extremely evil vertical eyes. The black-clothed man walked extremely slowly, but every step he took seemed to move the entire space around him. He was like a supreme demon lord who had crossed worlds. This was a terrifying existence. Yi Chen's expressionless face finally changed. As soon as he appeared, the sense of danger in his heart exploded, as if he was targeted by some peerless, ferocious creature. Chapter 1602. Demon Lord. Yi Chen's pupils constricted violently as he looked at the man in black who suddenly appeared. In the strict hierarchy of the devil world, if a demon general was equivalent to a perfected void refinement cultivator, then a demon lord was equivalent to a soul-splitting cultivator in the cultivation world. Things are getting out of hand. Thinking to this point, he frowned slightly. Clearly, he did not expect a demon lord to exist in the Yin ruins. He must have walked out of the demonic soil. This made him even more fearful of the demonic soil. The world was silent. Tian Xiazi and the rest looked at the 2 demon generals, kneeling respectfully on the ground. Then they looked at the man in black again with eyes filled with shock. The man in black had a monstrous evil aura, as if he was ignoring all living beings in the world. His gaze landed directly on Yi Chen. "Haha, you're extraordinary human. You've lost 2 of my subordinates." Are you the demon Lord Night Soul that those two pieces of trash mentioned earlier? Yi Qin said in a deep voice. That's right. The man in black smiled faintly, causing one's hair to stand on end. I'm the demon, Lord Night Soul, under Lord Du Tian Demon King of the Devil World's Du Tian Demon Region. As soon as he said that, there was an imperceptible fluctuation in Yi Chen's body. Only Yi Chen could sense it. It was the Du Tian Demon King's split soul that he had subdued in the dark purple world. Yi Chen's heart tightened slightly when he thought about the Du Tian Demon King that the demon, Lord Night Soul, mentioned. Clearly, the guy in his body was the split soul of the demon, Lord Night Soul's master. Now that he was carrying this bomb, if the former noticed it, it would definitely cause trouble. As expected, the demon, Lord Night Soul, looked at Yi Chen fixedly. His eyes flickered as he said, "You're interesting, human brat. You're clearly a human, but you have a trace of the demonic aura on you. This aura is somewhat familiar to me." At this point, he smiled warmly. "I'm becoming more and more interested in you." "Forget it. I think you're quite interesting. Why don't you come with me?" His tone was extremely gentle, as if he was really discussing with Yi Chen. There was a hint of mischief in his eyes when he looked at Yi Chen. Hearing that, the two demon generals kneeling respectfully on the ground, Tian Xiazi and the rest, were overjoyed. Their eyes were filled with schadenfreude. Ha ha ha. One of the demon generals was extremely proud. "Mad Southerny, you should feel honored to be able to make the demon lord appear personally." "Miss, what should we do?" On the surface of the sea, Xiao Tao was extremely nervous. Beside her, Yu Feishuan's face was pale, and her eyes were filled with despair. Even though she did not know what the demon lord represented, she could faintly guess that the demon lord's strength was unfathomable. "Master, leave. I'll hold him back." With a furious roar, Zhu unleashed all his physical strength and charged towards Night Soul Demon Lord like a bolt of lightning. "You overestimate yourself." Night Soul Demon Monarch ignored him. His eyes flashed, and Zhu felt an explosion in her head. She screamed and fell from the sky into the sea. The former looked at Yi Chen with a forced smile. "What? Do you want me to invite you?" "If you want me to go with you, that'll depend on whether you have the ability or not." Yi Chen scoffed as his long hair danced in the wind. "Coincidentally, the 4 pieces of trash earlier were too weak. I didn't have enough fun." "Is that so?" The smile on Night Soul Demon Lord's face dimmed slightly. Then he suddenly slammed his palm down. The space distorted violently, and a black shadow charged at Yi Chen. The black shadow seemed to be condensed from extremely pure demonic energy. Then it quickly turned into an extremely black light formation in the air. Clearly, Night Soul Demon Lord was going to suppress it. 118-inch, perfect timing. Yi Chen's eyes flashed as if there was a raging killing intent sweeping out. Subsequently, he drew a line in the air with his right hand. A resplendent saber gleam tore through the air and landed on the black light formation. Clang! As the dazzling sparks exploded in the void, the space shook violently, and the unbreakable black light array shook violently a few times. Then it exploded with a loud bang, turning into countless violent demonic auras. At the same time, Yi Chen retreated a few steps back. "He actually took it? How is that possible?" Tian Xiazi and the rest's eyeballs almost popped out when they saw that. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. One had to know that it was a demon lord, an existence comparable to a spirit-severing cultivator. Even when they were facing this person, the terrifying pressure from all over their bodies made them unable to even have the slightest intention to resist. Night Soul Demon Lord narrowed his eyes slightly. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes when he looked at Yi Chen again. "There's something wrong with your body." Clearly, he could tell that Yi Chen's physical strength had long surpassed his true origin energy, cultivation base. That was why he could break his soul-corroding demon formation with one slash. "I'll know everything when I take you down." At this point, he slowly closed his eyes. At that moment, the space behind him suddenly reversed, as if a demonic energy storm had been set off. At the same time, a terrifying pressure swept out from his body. Clearly, this demon lord was going to attack with all his might. Rumble. In an instant, the demonic energy between heaven and earth boiled and spread out majestically, as if it was going to break the sky. Tianxia and the rest were terrified under the pressure. They felt like their primordial spirits were about to collapse. It really is the strength of a spirit-severing cultivator. A solemn look flashed through Yi Chen's eyes. With his current beginner stage, void, refinement stage, true origin energy, it would be difficult for him to deal with a spirit-severing cultivator. The only thing he could rely on was his physical strength. Thinking to this point, his body suddenly emitted a dazzling divine light. The divine light was changing at a crazy speed, and behind him, a terrifying shadow was condensing. There was a dragon soaring in the sky. There was a tiger roaring in the world. There was a phoenix crying in the sky. It was the 9 transformations of the true spirit. The first time he used this ability was in the ancient, desolate realms Tianfengxi area. As he unleashed the 9 transformations of the true spirit, a terrifying pressure emanated from his body at the same time. The pressure was actually on par with Night Soul Demon Lords. Rumble. The 2 terrifying pressures collided, causing the space around them to collapse at a speed visible to the naked eye. At that moment, an extremely domineering voice suddenly shook the world. Night Soul, when did you fall to the point of bullying a junior? As soon as this voice appeared, it turned into an earth-shaking commotion, forcefully dispelling the pressure on Night Soul Demon Lord's body, causing his expression to change drastically. Rumble. Chapter 1603. The figure was extremely tall, and his long hair was disheveled. He stepped on the turbulent sea barefoot, and an indescribable pressure swept out from his body. Endless purple light dispersed all the demonic energy in the world. The moment he looked at the figure, extreme shock flashed across Demon Lord Night Soul's face. Di Jiang! Di Jiang! Upon hearing these 2 extremely shocking words, the bodies of everyone present trembled, after which they seemed to have recalled something as they violently inhaled a breath of cold air. Ancestor sorcerer Di Jiang. In ancient times, he was one of the 12 most terrifying existences on Earth. Yi Chen was also shocked. Isn't Di Jiang in a deep sleep? The tall figure wrapped in dazzling purple light arrived like an ancient god descending to the world. He instantly appeared clearly before everyone's eyes. Only now did everyone see his face clearly. It was a middle-aged man with a rugged appearance. He had violet hair, a pair of eyes that seemed like bolts of lightning, and his facial features were slightly different from an ordinary person. However, the aura that emanated from his body caused the heavens and the earth to tremble slightly. Ah! Under the illumination of the resplendent purple light, the 2 demon generals kneeling on the ground immediately screamed miserably. Their bodies began to emit green smoke as if they were being burned. Then, they disappeared before everyone's eyes. Plop! Tianxia and the other 3 knelt heavily on the ground when they saw that. Their hearts trembled, and they felt like their souls were about to leave their bodies. There was such a terrifying existence hidden on Earth. Di Jiang, I can't believe you're still alive. Night Soul Demon Emperor's expression was extremely gloomy. He turned a blind eye to the tragic deaths of his 2 subordinates and stared at Di Jiang with his evil eyes. No, this isn't your real body. It's a clone. Even if it's only a clone, it's enough to kill you. Di Jiang chuckled with an indifferent expression, as if he was not good with words. So many years have passed, and you, the demonic earth, can't hold it in any longer and came out early. Aren't you afraid of repeating the same mistake? Humph! Night Soul Demon Monarch sneered. If Great Emperor Xianyuan, the leader of the human race, hadn't set up a trap that forced the powerful demons to fight the ancient immortals and injured us in the end, would you have been able to reap the benefits and enjoy the peace you've enjoyed for so many years? At this point, he cackled. Things are different now. Great Emperor Xianyuan has already stepped onto the path of heaven. I want to see who else can save you. When the demonic land and the underworld earth come to an agreement, it will be the end of this world. The underworld? Dijiang's eyes flashed like purple lightning cutting through the sky. Whether it's the underworld or the demonic earth, at least I can get rid of trash like you in advance today. Hearing this, the Night Soul Demon Monarch's hair stood on end. Then he turned into dozens of black shadows and fled in all directions. Earlier, he had made a solemn vow, but now that he was facing Emperor Jiang, he had no desire to fight at all. He only wanted to escape. Hee, you want to escape from me? Dijiang chuckled when he saw this, and he didn't panic in the slightest. In the next instant, his figure vanished mysteriously. Boom! At the moment when his figure disappeared, purple light suddenly bloomed in the distance. A terrifying figure caught up with a black shadow and then punched out, exploding the black shadow. Boom! Then he caught up to another shadow with a series of earth-shattering booms. More than half of the dozens of shadows Night Soul Demon Monarch had created were destroyed. The entire process was completed in the blink of an eye. Only the last black figure seized this gap to escape far away. Emperor Jiang waved his hand, and boundless purple light whistled over from all directions. In the end, it transformed into an enormous hand that could hold up the heavens, and then it slammed down. Ah! Dijiang, don't get ahead of yourself. Sooner or later, we demons will rule over everything, enslave all living beings, and destroy you all. Following that, a series of shrill screams rang out. The world regained its peace. All of the demonic chi had retreated, and the world regained its former glory. Everyone stared at the scene in shock. A dignified devil lord was killed. Just like that, Yi Chen's heart skipped a beat. There was a hint of fear in his eyes when he looked at Dijiang. The latter had killed a demon monarch with his physical strength alone. That was the terrifying thing about body cultivators. The human body was the most powerful weapon in the world. No matter what abilities or spells you had, I could break them with a single punch. What a hateful guy. Dijiang retracted his gaze and looked at Yi Chen. There's something wrong with your body. If you advance another level, I'll kill a piece of trash like this with a single punch. Thank you. Yi Chen nodded lightly. Although he had the power to fight Night Soul Demon Monarch, it was definitely not as easy as the former. As a matter of fact, the other party was right. His physical body had already been worn down a lot after he had crossed the 33rd heavens void crack on his way back to Earth. These guys fought with us countless times back then. Killing him is just our duty. You don't have to thank me. Dijiang did not seem to appreciate it. He looked into the demonic land and said calmly, "The real battle is over there. This clone of mine can't be maintained for long, so I won't stay for long." With that, he took a step forward and disappeared from this world. In the demonic land, heaven and earth were boiling. The cracks in the ground were like huge scars. Demonic energy swept through everything, and all sorts of heart-palpitating fluctuations fought fiercely under the sky. Divine item, please help me. Kill. Chinchou Wuhan held the divine item in his hand and slashed at the sky. In the blink of an eye, chaotic aura surged out. Roar! A furious roar rang out. World Guardian. Although I'm dead, there are more than 10 million existences like me in the devil world. Don't get ahead of yourself. King. Countless demons roared as if they were in grief. Boom! In the huge void, a giant fiery red beast over 300 meters in size opened its mouth and spat. Immediately, 9 divine flames descended from the sky and descended into the demonic land. Nearly a third of the demonic land turned into an endless fiery domain, and countless shrill screams could be heard. A moment later, the world returned to peace. At a closer look, the giant fiery red beast actually had 9 heads. The giant fiery red beast lowered its head and looked at the scholar. Its gaze landed on the divine item in his hand, and it said in human language, "You subdued this blade." How did Wuhin get the divine item's favor? Qianqiu Wuhin smiled sadly. "I'm just borrowing it." As soon as he finished speaking, the divine item in his hand left his hand and turned into a sky-piercing blade gleam that disappeared into the endless darkness. The giant fiery red beast's eyes flashed. "Dijiang, I didn't expect you to wake up too." Chapter 1604. In the southern region of the Inshu ruins, where the merfolk were, following the death of the Night Soul Demon Lord, the world returned to its previous clarity. However, the earth-shattering battle from before still lingered in everyone's minds. Whoosh! Suddenly, the four figures looked at each other and gritted their teeth. Then they turned into afterimages and fled in all directions. It was Tianxia and the other three. After the capital war and the death of the Night Soul Demon Lord, they knew that they were finished. Yi Chen had the ability to kill 2 demon generals consecutively and even fight the Night Soul Demon Lord. How could the 4 of them be a match for him? Therefore, to them, escaping was the only way to save their lives. The 4 of them were cunning. They knew to split up and escape. They thought that Yi Chen would not be able to stop them alone. However, in the next moment, 3 of them froze at the same time. Then their faces were filled with shock because there was a Yi Chen in front of them. Only the old monster from the Sun Luo Mountain fled forward. However, in the next moment, he was killed by a locust tree leaf on the spot. "Why you?" Tianxia looked at the black-clad Yi Chen who was blocking his way. Shock surged on his face like a tsunami. He could not even complete a sentence, while stammering. Yi Chen had used this technique outside the desolate god's tomb before. Therefore, he naturally recognized this technique at a glance. Correspondingly, the old monster from the Dark Corner region looked at the white-clothed Yi Chen who was blocking his way in shock. "How dare you stop me with a mere illusion? Get lost!" The old monster from the Dark Corner region roared. He actually launched a terrifying divine consciousness attack at the white-clothed Yi Chen. As soon as his divine consciousness was released, it crushed everything like a flood. However, the white-clothed Yi Chen's expression was calm. However, a gleam flashed through his eyes. Subsequently, it turned into a pillar of light that rose like boiling flames. 2 terrifying divine consciousnesses collided with each other, instantly destroying the space within a radius of 3,000 meters. "Ah!" The former screamed and fell from the sky while hugging his head. His eyes were bloodshot, and his expression was filled with extreme pain. Bang, bang, bang. It wasn't long before the 3 of them were forced together. Tianxia collapsed onto the ground. Intense fear filled his eyes when he looked at Yi Chen. He said while shaking, "How are you so powerful?" If he remembered correctly, Yi Chen had only stepped into the beginner stage void refinement not long ago. However, the few of them who were at perfected void refinement could not resist at all. "Fellow Yi, are you all right?" At this time, Yu Feishuan and the other 2 rushed over. All 3 of them were soaked in demon blood, but fortunately they did not suffer any serious injuries. "I'm fine." Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Zhu Li looked at Tianxia and the other 2 coldly. "My lord, what should we do with these 3 old fellows?" Yu Feishuan's eyes were filled with hatred as she said, "I think we should just kill him." It could be said that the current situation of the Merfolk clan was completely caused by the 3 of them. As a result, her hatred towards the 3 of them had already reached its limit. When they heard this, Tianxia and the others immediately felt a strand of icy cold, killing intent. The 3 of them shuddered and hurriedly said, "Young Miss Yu, everything we did was bewitched by Demon General Naitark and the others." Afraid that Yu Feishuan would not believe him, Tianxia continued, "Including your grandfather, Yu Taiyuan. He was bewitched by the Night Ark demon general with a mandala demon flower and fell into an endless hallucination. That's why he did not foresee the danger of your merfolk clan. The Yu Taiyuan he mentioned was the merfolk clan's patriarch. Hearing that, Yu Feishuan's delicate body trembled as if she had heard some bad news. So what happened to grandfather was all your doing. Ms. Yu, I know how to get your grandfather to ask for the mandala demon flower, as long as you don't let fellow Yi kill us. At this point, his expression was extremely bitter. Logically speaking, they were all old monsters who had lived for thousands of years and had long seen through life and death. However, when they faced death, they could not help but be afraid of death. Yi Qin glanced at Yu Feishuan. What do you think? Yu Feishuan could only retract her killing intent and say coldly, I'll spare their lives for now. We'll talk about it after we save grandfather, brother Tian, and the rest. The three of you are lucky. Yi Chen's expression was calm as he said, however, you can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment. Hand over your soul blood and be loyal to me forever. The expressions of Tian Xiazi and the other two changed drastically when they heard that. The old monster from the dark corner zone took a deep breath in and sneered, I've cultivated for countless years. I'd rather die than hand over my soul blood. Since that's the case, go to hell. Yi Qin attacked. The old man spat a mouthful of blood immediately. His body tilted and he fell to the ground, dead. Following his death, Tian Xiazi and the other two forced a smile. In the end, they gritted their teeth and pointed at their glabella with trembling right hands. 2 drops of golden blood landed in Yi Chen's hand. After taking their soul blood, Yi Chen looked at Tian Xiazi and said, Now bring me to my brother, Yang Tian. Yes, Tian Xiazi nodded bitterly. He took the lead and led Yi Qin and the rest to the gigantic island. At the same time, a huge city entered Yi Chen's sight. The city was decorated extremely luxuriously. It seemed to be made of agate and coral. Yi Qin could not help but frown. The merfolk were a cultivation force, after all. He did not expect the decorations to be no different from a palace in the mortal world. As if sensing his confusion, Yu Feishuan's pretty face could not help but heat up. She explained, There are many women in the merfolk tribe, and women are born to be beautiful, so Yi Qin could not help but come to a realization and stopped asking. In the end, Tian Xiazi led everyone into the merfolk's ancestral land. It seemed to be a serene pool. However, when they stepped into it, they immediately felt the world spin. A powerful restrictive force came at them. Open. Yu Feishuan bit her finger and formed ancient and obscure runes in the air. The runes were like butterflies that circled above the serene pool. Rumble. With a loud bang, the power of the restrictive force that was coming at them immediately dispersed. In the next moment, the scene before them changed. The space was torn open forcefully. When they stepped into it, they saw an extremely quiet valley. There was a spacious corridor under their feet, and there was a huge palace at the end of the corridor. Outside the palace, there was a huge stone statue standing tall. It was a mermaid stone statue, but it seemed to be a woman. Even though it was a stone statue, it was still vivid and lifelike. The otherworldly aura between her brows made Yi Qin take a few more glances. This is the ancestor of the merfolk tribe. Yu Feishuan and Xiao Tao kowtowed to the stone statue respectfully before introducing them to Yi Qin one after another. End of this chapter. Chapter 1605. Grandfather is in the stone hall. At this point, Yu Feishuan could not help but glare at Tian Xiazi coldly. Only the clan leader could enter the ancestral land of the merfolk. Now that something had happened to the merfolk's patriarch and Yang Tian, the 2 new and old clan leaders. How could it be that easy for her to open the ancestral land? Tian Xiazi forced a smile and said, To be honest, I've tried with the other fellow Taoists earlier, but we couldn't open it. Let me do it. Yi Chen chuckled softly and moved. At the same time, dazzling divine flames bloomed in his eyes. Great 5 elemental restriction breaking technique. Break. Boom. With a loud bang, the stone hall's door finally opened heavily. The first thing that came out was the irresistible demonic energy. At the same time, a cold wind seemed to blow in this space. One could vaguely hear countless evil cries and howls. Golden pupil flame, burn the heavens. 2 dazzling pillars of divine flames shot out of Yi Chen's eyes. They swept past like heavenly swords, and all the demonic energy that was swept away turned into nothingness. In just a few breaths of time, the scene inside the stone hall was completely exposed to everyone's sight. At the center, there was a meditation cushion, and an old figure was sitting on it. The figure was dressed in a purple robe, and he seemed to be stiff and motionless. However, at this moment, his entire body was wrapped in thick, demonic energy, as if he had transformed into a supreme demon lord. It was the merfolk's patriarch, Yu Taiyuan. If one were to look carefully, one would notice that there was a dim light standing motionlessly above his head. The dim light was like a black lotus platform, and the endless demonic aura was being emitted from it. "Grandfather," Yu Feishuan shouted when she saw that. She immediately walked over quickly and knelt before the old man. Yi Chen glanced at Tian Xiazi, and the latter's expression changed slightly. He walked out immediately, bit the tip of his tongue, and spat a mouthful of blood essence at the black lotus platform. Then he formed hand seals with both hands. Wang. After the black lotus throne absorbed his blood essence, it emitted a red glow, and then it shrank rapidly as if it had sensed something. In the end, it became the size of a palm and fell into Tian Xiazi's hand. Following the black lotus throne's movement, the demonic qi on Yu Taiyuan's body immediately dissipated at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, his complexion returned to normal. Yu Taiyuan slowly opened his eyes and looked at the people before him blankly. When his gaze landed on Yi Chen, he could not help but frown. He'd been controlled by the devil mandala flower, and even though it had only been a few short days, it felt as if he'd sunk into oblivion for thousands of years. Thus, even when he woke up, his thoughts still hadn't been completely washed away. "Grandfather," Yu Feishuan wept tears of joy. Yu Taiyuan frowned. "Xiana, they are?" As if sensing his displeasure, Yu Feishuan immediately told him everything about the merfolk race's calamity. After hearing it, Yu Taiyuan seemed to have aged a few decades, having suffered a huge blow. The merfolk race was his blood and sweat. Now that more than half of it had been destroyed, how could he not feel heartache? What made him feel even more guilty was that he had actually watched this calamity happen because of the devil mandala flower. However, someone like him who had lived for countless years naturally would not show his sorrow on his face easily. He could only stand up slowly and clasp his fists at Yi Chen. "Thank you, fellow Yi." His eyes were filled with deep admiration when he looked at Yi Chen. From Yu Feishuan's narration, he had already learned about Yi Chen's shocking achievements. At his age, Yu Taiyuan knew that he could not do that. "Fellow Yu, you're too kind," Yi Chen said with a faint smile. "Since my brother, Yang Tian, is your merfolk race's son-in-law, his business is my business. It's Yang Tian's fortune to have a brother like you." Yu Taiyuan was not a pretentious person. After secretly remembering this kindness, he suddenly remembered, "Where's Yang Tian?" Yu Feishuan could not help but look at Tian Xizi. Yi Chen said coldly, "Where's my brother, Yang Tian?" Tian Xizi's heart sank, and a red vertical eye suddenly appeared between his brows. The vertical eye released a blinding red glow into the air. At the next moment, after the red glow hit the space in front of everyone, a huge crack immediately appeared, as if it had been torn apart by an invisible hand. As the crack rapidly grew larger, a huge cage immediately appeared before everyone's eyes. At that moment, there were 2 figures sitting cross-legged in the cage, as if they had fallen into a deep sleep. It was Yang Tian and Yang Hao. Yi Chen stretched his hand out and broke the cage forcefully. He pulled Yang Tian and his son out and pointed between their brows. Yang Tian was the first to wake up. When he saw Tian Xiazi, a cold killing intent immediately erupted from his body. Tian Xiazi, you bastard! Tian Xiazi's expression changed drastically. At that moment, Yi Chan waved his sleeve and stopped Yang Tian. He said, while smiling, "Have you become muddle-headed after sleeping? You don't even recognize me anymore?" Oldie. Only then did Yang Tian notice him. The killing intent on his body suddenly disappeared as he said excitedly, "I didn't expect to see you alive." He charged over and punched Yi Chen as he spoke. Be **starred. Yu Taiyuan's expression was calm as he could not help but snort coldly. To him, Yi Chen was the savior of the entire mermaid tribe. Yet, Yang Tian treated Yi Chen in such a rude manner. Yang Tian smiled awkwardly when he heard the cold snort. He only gave Yi Chen a hug. Yi Chen shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Soon, Yang Hao woke up as well. He was extremely excited when he saw Yi Chen. "Uncle Yi," the two of them were fine. It must be because Tian Xiazi and the other three wanted to subdue Yang Tian and his son back then, so they did not do anything too outrageous to them. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not mind killing them. Subsequently, Yu Feishuan told him everything about Yi Chen rushing over to save everyone. After hearing that, apart from feeling grateful, Yang Tian was even more shocked by Yi Chen. He stared at Yi Chen with an extremely strange gaze. In the end, he forced out a sentence, F***CK, you're AF**King Psycho. Previously, when he returned to the mermaid tribe for closed-door cultivation, he had stepped into void refinement with the help of the rising dragon void pill. He could not help but feel that he had surpassed Yi Chen. However, hearing what Yu Feishuan said now, the little pride left in his heart was instantly shattered. Yi Chen smiled and turned to look at Yu Taiyuan. "Fellow Yu, I heard that you have a fragment of the immortal holy herb." That was his true purpose of coming to the mermaid tribe. Now that he had collected most of the 5-element lotus map fragments, only the one in the mermaid tribe's patriarch's hand was left. Once he collected all of them, he would be able to find out the whereabouts of the 5-element lotus. By then, Su Yuhan would be saved. End of this chapter. Chapter 1606. Yu Taiyuan was shocked at first when he heard Yi Chen's words. Then he said slowly, "Fellow Yi, are you talking about this?" With a flash of light, a bone fragment appeared in his hand. The bone fragment was the size of a leaf. As soon as it appeared, it caused the temperature in the void to cool down. "That's right, this is it." Yi Chen was delighted. "If fellow Yi needs it, I'll give it to you." Yu Taiyuan glanced at him. How could he not know that Yi Chen needed this item? He smiled and flicked his finger without hesitation, tossing the bone fragment to Yi Chen. After Yi Chen caught it, he said extremely sincerely, "Thank you. I'm not someone who takes advantage of others. I'm willing to agree to one of your conditions, fellow Yu." "You're too kind." Yu Taiyuan shook his head slightly. "Putting aside the fact that Yang Tian is the son-in-law of our merfolk race, even if we take a step back, our merfolk race would have been in danger of being annihilated if not for Taoist Yi." At this point, he could not help but glance at the bone fragment in Yi Chen's hand. He said with a bitter smile, "Moreover, I've been studying this item. Although I know that it's extraordinary, I can't get any more useful information. Since that's the case, I might as well give it to fellow Yi." "That's right, master. You don't have to stand on ceremony. This thing is only useful to you," Yang Tian chimed in. Yi Chen did not argue. After accepting it, he could not hide the excitement in his heart. Now that all the map fragments were gathered, he only needed to piece them together to find out the whereabouts of the 5-element heaven lotus. An hour later, Yu Feishuan was in charge of counting all the remaining members of the mermaid tribe. At the same time, she calculated the casualties and losses. When they saw the statistics, everyone, including Yu Taiyuan, felt their hearts sink. This time, the mermaid tribe's strength had fallen by half. If not for Yu Taiyuan being alive, it would have been difficult for them to maintain their position as the overlord of the southern region. At the same time, in the ancestral land of the mermaid tribe, Yi Chen sat cross-legged and waved his hand, sealing the space immediately. Subsequently, fragments shot out from his sleeve and floated before him. There were 9 of them in total. Yi Chen no longer hesitated as he looked at the map fragments. He quickly pieced the 9 map fragments together according to the patterns. Time passed bit by bit. When the 9th map fragment landed, a palm-sized bone armor appeared in front of him. From afar, it looked like a tortoise shell, and on it was a landscape painting. That landscape painting was extremely ordinary. There was no route guide or any indication. It was as if someone had randomly sketched it out on a whim. Yi Chen could not help but frown upon seeing that. He had painstakingly gathered all the pieces of the map, but there was no information on what he had pieced together. Could it be that his hard work was going to go to waste? Buzz! An enormous divine sense surged out from his Niwen palace, and then it completely wrapped around the entire bone armor, unwilling to let go of even the slightest trace. But in the end, he gained nothing. Thinking to this point, he was slightly unwilling, so he simply bit his finger and dripped a drop of blood at the center of the bone armor. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After the bone armor absorbed his blood, it suddenly became extremely hot, like a red-hot soldering iron. Then all the patterns on it appeared like the meridians of a human body. Boom! In the end, the hot patterns suddenly distorted violently. Then they turned into hot words that flew out of the bone armor and hovered above Yi Chen's head. There are 3 wonders in the sky and 6 rites on earth. The spirits are strange, and the dead are buried. Yellow sand, red soil, and a gravel grave. Feng Huang could be seen everywhere he went. Yi Chen chanted softly as he looked at the 32 bird and beast words hovering before him. A hint of emotion appeared on his face. The reason being those 32 short words revealed an extremely profound understanding of feng shui. The clue to the 5-element heaven, lotus, must have been left behind by a feng shui expert. Yi Chen did not know much about feng shui, but he could roughly understand it. The so-called 3 wonders in the sky referred to the sun, moon, and stars, while the 6 rites on earth were Wu, Jiazi, Ji Jiasu, Gang Jiashan, Xian Jiawu, and Ren Jiachen. As for the latter part, Yi Chen did not quite understand. His eyes flickered a few times before he waved his hand and walked out of the ancestral land of the merfolk. He found Yu Taiyuan and went straight to the point. "Fellow Yu, do you know anything about feng shui?" Hearing that, Yu Taiyuan was slightly surprised. "How did fellow Yi know that I know something about feng shui?" Yi Chen was overjoyed when he heard that. He immediately said the 32 words. Of course, he did not mention the origin of the 32 words. Yu Taiyuan did not pursue the matter. Instead, he laughed out loud. "Fellow Yi, do you know the use of these 32 words?" Yi Chen shook his head slightly. "This is the incantation to open a tomb." Yu Taiyuan smiled and said, "Feng shui masters have to recite this incantation when looking for their clients' tombs. Therefore, fellow Taoist Yi, you're overcomplicating it. These 32 incantations have already pointed out that the thing you're looking for is inside a tomb." Hearing that, Yi Chen was surprised. As for where this tomb is, Yu Taiyuan pondered for a moment and said, "I'm not sure." Yi Chen shook his head lightly, feeling a little disappointed. When he was about to return to the merfolk ancestral land to study, he saw the entire space where the merfolk were shaking violently. Boom! At that moment, the 32 words violently soared into the sky, breaking through the space that he had sealed, and soared into the sky like a meteor streaking across the sky. "What's this?" Yi Chen's body swayed and disappeared into the distance instantly. His body traveled through the void in the blink of an eye. With his golden fiery eyes, he immediately saw the 32 words heading toward the outskirts of Yin Su with an indomitable will. "I'd like to see where you're going." Yi Qin sneered. He then took a step forward and teleported away. At the same time, the entire Yin Su was stirred. The commotion was simply too huge and shocking. All the forces were shocked by this scene. Tianyuan City, within the Tianyuan Chamber of Commerce. Feng Tianqin, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes. Then he appeared in the air and looked at the 32 words that were heading toward the far west of Yin Su. His expression suddenly became overjoyed. The holy elixir of immortality. This is the holy elixir of immortality that my clan has been searching for. Ha ha ha. In the next moment, he immediately threw his head back and laughed loudly. His dignified voice that was like muffled thunder resounded in countless people's minds at the same time. Tianyuan Chamber of Commerce, powerhouses above, void refinement, follow me. Chapter 16:07. As his voice faded, swish, swish, swish. In an instant, more than a dozen void training experts shot out from Tianyuan City, whistling through the air. The great Jiang dynasty, Jiang Xinguo, the lord of the dynasty, stood at the top of the imperial city and looked at the image in the sky. This aura is exactly the same as the one recorded in the imperial codex. Relay my decree! The next moment, a mighty voice that sounded like that of an emperor rang out. All experts above the prince level of the divine dynasty move out! Not only Tianyuan City and the great Jiang dynasty, but even the heavenly jade Holy Land, the ruthless palace, the Sangming Temple, and other forces were all mobilized. Even those with low cultivation could feel the terrifying auras whistling through the void from time to time. Something big happened again. The Yin ruins is getting more and more chaotic. For a moment, countless people were very uneasy. Some bold people gritted their teeth and chose to follow them to see what was going on. The Panwu immortal sect. Patriarch Yellow Spring squinted at the movement and murmured, natural phenomena. It's either the birth of a monster or the birth of a supreme treasure. Speaking of this, he could not help but look up at the black figure on the mountain opposite him. First Emperor, do you dare to follow me? The black figure was wearing a black dragon robe, and his face was dignified without being angry. He did not speak in the face of the patriarch's provocation, but the purple gold wings on his back suddenly shook violently. Then he broke through the clouds and flew west like a primordial giant beast. Taoist black ice, stay in the sect. I'll go take a look. Patriarch Yellow Spring could not hold back his loneliness. He told Taoist black ice, who had just arrived and immediately chased after Ing. In the vast demonic land, the sacred ape looked into the void and murmured, Boss, the thing left behind by the great emperor has finally been exposed. Should we take action? A deep voice responded. Since it's the great emperor's item, there must be a reason for it to appear. In the far west of the Yin ruins, there was a sea of corpses and bones. Countless bones were piled up into a mountain that spanned hundreds of miles. It was a scene that made people shudder. This was the Demon Corpse Sea. At this moment, in the sky above the sea of demon corpses, a golden human skeleton was looking at everything under his feet with a serious expression. As he looked over, countless corpses seemed to be burning at a high temperature, and actually began to melt at a speed visible to the naked eye. If there were outsiders present, they would definitely find out that this being was the master of the demon corpse ocean, Saint Sayu. His expression was extremely unsightly, and his gaze was focused on a huge canyon 10 kilometers away. At this moment, the canyon had already turned into an endless field of fire, and the terrifying temperature caused even him to be secretly fearful. Just a moment ago, something that looked like heavenly fire fell into the gorge, and then the gorge was instantly covered in endless flames. His intuition told him that such an unforeseen event was definitely extraordinary. Just as he was hesitating whether he should go down to investigate, a graceful figure that connected the heavens and the earth swept over from afar. Then it turned into a skinny young man. Mad Southerny. When he saw the person's face clearly, Saint Sayu's expression turned completely grim. Mad Southerny, don't tell me that you're the one who caused all of this. Yi Chen acted as if he did not hear him. He stared at the huge canyon that was wrapped in endless flames. A pair of divine light shot out from his eyes as he tried to see the situation in the canyon. At this moment, the space around the two of them shook violently, and then it was torn apart by a terrifying force. Over 10 figures shot out from the crack. The leader was Fong Tianqin from the Heavenly Yuan Chamber of Commerce. Over 10 void refinement powerhouses. Saint Sayu's eyelids twitched when he saw that. He immediately looked at Fong Tianqin with fear. Fellow Fong, what do you mean by bringing people to the Demon Corp Sea? This lineup was almost all the strength of the Heavenly Yuan Chamber of Commerce. If they really fought, not to mention a single Demon Corp Sea, even 100 of them would not be enough to break through. Fong Tianqin took a look at the canyon first. Subsequently, he noticed Yi Chen as well. After his pupils constricted slightly, he said to Saint Sayu, Fellow Sayu, please don't misunderstand. We were all attracted by this phenomenon. At this point, he stared at Saint Sayu and said, Fellow Sayu, do you know where this phenomenon came from? Saint Sayu glanced at Yi Chen secretly and said in a deep voice, I don't know either. I suspect that a divine item has appeared in that canyon. Fong Tianqin took a deep breath in. There was a hint of passion in his eyes as he looked at the huge canyon. Fellow Yi, don't you think so? Even if it is, it belongs to me. I'll kill whoever dares to snatch it from me. Yi Chen said coldly. Fellow Yi, you're really arrogant. Fong Tianqin smiled sinisterly. Don't forget that my Tianyuan city has turned out in full force today. Even if you're extraordinarily talented, you can't fight against so many, right? Then you can try. Yi Chen chuckled softly. Fong Tianqin's expression turned cold. Just as he was about to speak, the sea of clouds in the sky suddenly exploded violently. Then a cold laugh was heard. I haven't seen you for a few days, and you're getting more and more arrogant, fellow Yi. As the terrifying pressure descended, a figure in a golden imperial robe descended with several old men. It was Jiang Xingguo and the rest. So, it's fellow Jiang. Seeing that the great Jiang God dynasty had also sent out 7 or 8 void refinement stage cultivators, Fong Tianqin's pupils constricted slightly. Then he cupped his fists with a smile. Jiang Xingguo nodded slightly and looked at Yi Chen. Fellow Yi, do you think you can fight me and fellow Fong head-on this time? We'll know once we try, Yi Chen retorted. I wonder if it's possible with me? At this moment, a domineering voice rang out. At the end of the sky, a purple-gold figure that blotted out the sun whistled over. It was Ying. Seeing this scene, Jiang Xingwu's expression was extremely ugly. He would never forget that Ying said that he was a fake emperor. He did not expect that this person would follow him like a haunting ghost. Whoever dares to touch mad Southern Yi will be my enemy. Another golden, human-shaped skeleton descended. He looked at Fong Tianqin and Jiang Xingguo as if he was provoking them. Then he nodded at Yi Chen. It's really lively here. Many powerhouses arrived one after another. They were all attracted by the strange noise earlier. In the end, there were more than 30 void refinement stage powerhouses in the entire Corp's Demon Sea gathered here. Although both sides did not fight, the invisible pressure caused heaven and earth to pale in comparison. Oh my God, it's a grand scene, a grand scene. With so many powerhouses, if they fight, the entire Yin ruins will be destroyed, right? A thunderous voice spread out from every corner of the world, causing countless people's hair to stand on end. Chapter 1608. Many big shots stood quietly in the void, and all of them emitted a monstrous pressure that could shake the heavens and the earth. Everyone's gazes landed on the huge canyon below. The flames in it were getting denser. Even though they were thousands of meters away, they could still feel the temperature. The heavenly jade holy master, who was dressed in a snow-white robe, squinted and looked at Yi Chen. Mad Southern Yi, you don't seem to have many people on your side. Do you dare to take a risk in such a situation? As soon as he spoke, everyone's attention was attracted. Many people who came later noticed Yi Chen's existence. Countless people's pupils constricted at first. They sneered when they saw that only Ing and Tribulation were next to Yi Chen. Yi Chen smiled lightly when he met everyone's gaze. What? Are you trying to bully us with numbers when you see that there are only 3 of us? You're just a motley crew, Ing said arrogantly and domineeringly. I alone am enough to defeat all of them. The soul fire in the golden skeleton's eyes stirred. I don't mind starting a massacre today. Arrogant. Many people snorted coldly when they heard that. They looked angry. Even though Yi Chen was powerful, there were no less than 20 void refinement cultivators from the various forces today. However, Yi Chen and the other 2 were boasting shamelessly. How could they not be furious? On the other hand, Jiang Shenguo, the ruler of the great Jiang God dynasty, the Heavenly Jade Holy Master, and the rest looked at each other. They could see the mischievousness in each other's eyes. Yi Chen and the other 2's arrogance was exactly what they wanted. In that case, it was equivalent to putting themselves on the opposite side of everyone present. At that moment, a cold laugh came from the void. Brother Yi, you still don't know that you're about to die. Everyone looked up and saw a silver-haired young man who looked like a god walking over with his hands behind his back. Behind him were 6 old men with powerful auras. The silver-haired young man's aura was faintly stronger than the 6 of them. Every move he made gave off an indescribable might. It was Huang Fuyu and the rest. Perfected void refinement. Upon seeing that, the pupils of Jiang Xinguo and the rest constricted violently. A cold gleam flashed through their eyes. This kid is really a monster. His cultivation aptitude is not inferior to Mad Southern Yi at all. He can be said to be one of the 2 peerless geniuses in China. However, when they recalled that Huang Fuyu was the reincarnation of a certain ancestor of the Huangfu clan, they felt relieved. Huang Fuyu. Yi Chen looked at Huang Fuyu and said coldly, Do you want to fight me today? Why don't you guess if you can still hold on to your dog life from my hands? Although he said that he was shocked by Huang Fuyu's cultivation speed, he had broken through several realms in less than a month. It was truly extraordinary. Impudent. As soon as he finished speaking, an old man in a Taoist robe stood out from behind Huang Fuyu and berated. Mad Southern Yi, who do you think you are? Are you worthy of fighting Alliance Master Huangfu? So it's Gugu. Yi Chen glanced at him and recognized that the former was the patriarch of the Gu family. He said while smirking immediately, You ran fast last time, so I didn't manage to kill you. However, you won't be so lucky this time. You, the patriarch of the Gu family, was furious. Elder Gu, there's no need to be angry with someone who's about to die. Huang Fuyu stopped him and looked at Yi Chen calmly. Brother Yi, I forgot to tell you that the 8 Xianyuan clans have been united by me. There will be no more 8 Xianyuan clans in the future. There will only be the Mad Extermination Alliance. As soon as he said that, many people immediately laughed. Mad Extermination Alliance. Based on those 3 words, everyone could tell that he was targeting Yi Chen. It seemed like this genius of the Huangfu family was determined to fight Yi Chen. Mad Extermination Alliance. Yi Chen chuckled. It's just a motley crew formed by a few trash families. How dare you call yourself the Mad Extermination Alliance? Brother Yi, feel free to speak. Huang Fuyu was still not angry. He glanced at Jiang Xinguo and the rest. Divine Master Jiang, President Fong, the Mad Extermination Alliance is willing to form an alliance with all of you and advance and retreat together. What do you think? Of course. Fong Tianqin smiled slightly. Alliance Master Huangfu has united the 8 Xianyuan clans at such a young age. It's enough to show that you're a young genius. The Tianyuan Trade Association is very happy to form an alliance with you. Young Master Huangfu. The great Jiang God dynasty has no objections, Jiang Xinguo said with a faint smile. The heavenly jade holy land is the same. The heartless palace is willing. In just a few breaths of time, most of the forces present expressed their willingness to form an alliance with Huang Fuyu. At that moment, the atmosphere between heaven and earth became extremely strange. Many people who were watching from afar could not help but shake their heads as they looked at Yi Chen. As a result, Yi Chen's side was in a passive position. You're just the reincarnation of a piece of trash who couldn't break through back then. How dare you call yourself a young genius? Can you not disgust me? At that moment, a burst of laughter came from the sky. Then a young man in black arrived in a domineering manner. Fellow Yi, the patriarch, is here. The patriarch of hell descended to Yi Chen's side and said with a grin, I knew it was related to you the moment I saw the commotion here. I was right. Another void refinement cultivator. Jiang Xingguo and the rest frowned secretly when they sensed the patriarch of hell's undisguised aura. They did not expect another powerhouse to appear by Yi Chen's side. Huang Fuyu looked straight at the patriarch of hell. Even if you, a beginner stage void refinement cultivator, are included, you won't be able to change the situation today. What if I'm included? Thunderclouds suddenly exploded in the sky, and an old man in a green Taoist robe appeared, bathed in lightning. Lei Yunzi! The expressions of the Gu clan's patriarch and the rest changed when they saw the person who had arrived. You're really not dead! Thanks to all of you, but I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. Not only am I not dead, I've even improved. Lei Yunzi landed next to Yi Chen and chuckled. Then a terrifying pressure was released from his body. Perfected void refinement. Even Huang Fuyu's expression changed when he sensed the aura. Clearly, he did not expect Lei Yunzi to have such a fortuitous encounter. Lei Yunzi looked at Yi Chen with incomparable gratitude. His eyes were filled with excitement. Thank you, fellow Yi. There's no need for such words since we're family. Yi Chen smiled lightly. Who dares to bully my brother? With a loud roar, Yang Tian arrived as well. This time, he was not the only one who came. Yu Taiyuan, the Merfolk clan's patriarch, Tian Xiazi, and the rest were also here. In an instant, another 4 void refinement cultivators joined Yi Chen's camp. Moreover, there were 3 perfected void refinement cultivators among them, including Lei Yunzi and the rest. In other words, there were 8 void refinement cultivators in Yi Chen's camp. At that moment, the world suddenly became deathly silent. Everyone could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. Even Jiang Xingguo and the rest were no exception.